Go ahead, sir.
He was talking about America.
Okay. Did you have something for B?
I have a motion to make.
All right.
I would like to make a motion that we authorize the city manager to negotiate and sign a settlement agreement with authority as discussed in executive session.
All right, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Hearing none, motion carries unanimous. Or C, consultation with legal counsel regarding a water service agreement with Draper Estates. Or D, discuss economic development request for feasibility study. All right. Hearing none, we will move into the regular council meeting. If everyone would, please join me for the pledge of allegiance to the flag and the Texas flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now the Texas flag.
On honor the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. All right, we'll go into citizen comments. In accordance with the Open Meetings Act, council is prohibited from acting or discussing other than factual responses to specific questions, any items not on the agenda. First, I have Mr. Surratt. You're up.
We don't have to.
Spin it or handing the microphone.
I'll just hand you the microphone.
If you would, please state your name and address for the record, please, sir.
Yeah, 20900 Wishbone Drive, Lago Vista, obviously.
Yes, sir.
All right, I just have questions. The first question is, what is being built on Boggy Ford?
There's a multi-unit apartment complex going on Boggy Ford.
How do we come to the conclusion we like apartments in Lago Vista?
That was several years ago, sir.
Huh?
Several years ago, sir.
Yeah, but several years ago, we turned it down because they wanted to put it, up on Dawn Drive, and we turned it down. And from what I understand, it's going to be a certain amount of low-income housing. Do we really want to be importing the problems and troubles that come with low-income housing? Is that something we decided to do? It's too nice here? Danny doesn't have enough work? Is that what it is? And what about the housing property near that apartment house? What do you think is going to happen to it? Nobody thought of that at all? They just waited for the government to slither in, shake some money in front of us, and then slither back out again as they usually do, because they don't care. They don't live here. They live in gated, armed communities. So we're left with handling the problems that low-income housing brings. Did anybody discuss that or decide?
Sir, this was on the agenda and discussed over 2 years ago. It's an old project.
Well, I was here 2 years ago and they tried to put something on, like I said, they tried to put it on Dawn Drive, we turned it down.
Yes, sir.
And now all of a sudden it shows up on Boggy Ford. Something, I wonder about it. I mean, are we trying, what's the matter? We don't like the place? Don't like Lago Vista? It's too nice,
I don't believe
Too well,
anybody on this council voted for it.
too safe?
All right, well, it's not a discussion item. It's just for your comments, sir.
All right.
I gave you some facts.
Well, that's my comment. Anode amine.
Know what I mean?
Yeah, anode amine. Are we now importing industrial storage equipment into the city? Think about it. You go come down 1431, and what's the first thing you see as you come up to Loman Ford? You see this big industrial complex to your right. I mean, why don't we put in, if that's going to be, how about putting in a refinery? I mean, let's really screw it up.
Well, Mr. Cirque, your time is up. I appreciate your comments.
Well, just briefly, the last thing I'm asking about is what have we done about zebra mussels? I understand we've taken some steps, but have we addressed it? Have we got biologists down?
If you would call in during the week and talk to our public works and engineers, and they can answer those questions.
No, they say it's not their fault. I did that already.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next I have Ron Smith.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. I have two easy ones here for you. The first one is, I haven't seen a financial report in the packets since the election of the new council. Is there any chance we can get the financials put back into the packet as well as the departmental reports? And then the second one is, the last time there was a CIP update to the council was spring of 18. I think it's time to get an update on the CIP status. Thank you.
Thank you. Great, that is all that I have signed up for citizen comments. Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to address the council at this time? All right, we will go into items of community interest. Pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.0415, the city council may report on any of the following items. A, expression of thanks, gratitude, or condolences. B, information regarding holiday schedules. C, recognition of individuals. D, reminders regarding city council events. E, reminders regarding community events. F, health and safety announcements. I have, myself and two other council members will be attending the elected officials conference put on by the Texas Municipal League at the end of next week. That is the 27th through the 1st of March. Then that weekend, March 2nd and 3rd, we have La Primavera bike race. And that is all I can think of at the moment.
Mr. Mayor, I can't remember the date of TxDOT.
Oh, Tuesday, March 5th, TxDOT is hosting an open house at the middle school from 5 to 7. Their presentation is on 1431 going west basically from Barkay all the way to the Burnett County line, I believe it is, 1174 or something like that. They're going to be addressing their planned widening of that section. I encourage everybody to come out and speak with TxDOT and see what they've got going on in our area. Anything else? All right. We will move on to the next one. Presentation. All right, so this is me. I will present the State of the City address. And I am going to come down there.
Mayor, as you're going down there, I do want to point out that I did encourage council members to wear the colors of the team that beat Duke last night, and no one joined in on that. So I did do that for us as an effort to show Carolina destroying the Duke Blue Devils. So that would start with your State of the City address. Just want to make sure. Ira was pretty close in his Carolina Blue
The
right
only
there.
reason that happened is someone got hurt on Duke's team.
Okay, I'm done now.
All right.
You know, just to make that clear.
All right, so first of all, State of the City Address 2019. I'm going to try to read it off of the television because the microphone is right in the middle of my pieces of paper down here, so bear with me. I apologize to those of you watching at home that you cannot see the monitors. The PowerPoint presentation is available on the city website. If you go to City Council agenda, there should be one that says State of the City Address, and you can follow along as I read. With that, I have approximately 30 slides. I'm going to read as fast as I can to try and keep this as brief as possible. It's not a question and answer session at this time. It's just going to be me reading and talking. And then afterwards, feel free to call me, email me, not tonight, but next week, and I'll address any questions that I may. So, slide 1. Welcome. We're here to live like you're on vacation. My question has always been, since running for office the last few years, is who are we? What do we want? Sitting behind me is our current city council. We took pictures 2 weeks ago. However, they have not been brought to us, so we've had to go with headshots. Sorry, I do not have a current group photo of council right now. Mayor Pro Tem is David Williams. Place 2, Don Bartholow. Place 3, Arch Davila. Place 4, Tim Collins. Place 5, Dick Weatherly. And place 6, Frank Robbins, who is joining us via Skype tonight. All right, current city data, 9,728 acres, 15.2 square miles. We have 146.2 miles of road, some of it paved. 8,042 residents estimated. January 2019, 6,815 as of January 2017. That is an increase of 1,227 people in 2 years. That is tremendous growth. That is 10% a year, 20% overall. Currently, we're at 529 people per square mile. All right, our city's mission statement. We're here to provide and maintain a healthy, safe, vibrant community, ensuring quality of life. We have 8 core values and guiding principles. Ensure a secure and safe community. 2, have a vibrant community with a value on growth and amenities. 3, promote a healthy, financial, stable community. 4, have an attractive community with a clean appearance. 5, ensure a well-planned community. 6, be energetic. 7, be caring. And number 8, be proactive rather than reactive. And I really like number 8, be proactive rather than reactive. Our council and staff has been very progressive in our thinking as far as trying to be proactive instead of reactive. So, a little bit about myself here. The next few slides are going to be about me and the staff, kind of how we approach things. Following my campaign, communication, vision, and planning. Communication, things that we have done. I host Talking Topics with Tidwell town hall meetings monthly. I have an average of attendance of about 20 people. Usually of those 20, 7 or 8 of them will be brand new to each meeting. So it's been a nice turnout. It's been some good communication with the citizens, and I encourage anybody to attend whenever you can. I have started some advisory groups. I have a welcome committee that actually was meeting tonight to get their packages together. They have 30-something homes from the month of January that they will be taking their welcome packages to.
I have a Young Families Advisory Group that is designed to ask questions of the families that have children at home that are in the not retired demographic and advise me on what they would like to see in their city. And I have a community outreach program group that seeks out different ways to work within the community to help make it a better place to live and quality of life. And I also am the liaison for the Youth Advisory Committee. I have a group of high school kids that are interested in making our community better, and I work with them on different projects. Facebook. We have become very visible on Facebook. Myself, the city has a page, the city manager has a page, Public Works has a page, golf course has a page, library has a page, the police have a page, our Lago Fest has a page, and soon our economic development will have a page. We have a new and upgraded website. We have just upgraded Lago Vista Radio, which is 1670 AM on your radio dial. And you can now stream it live through your computer at www.lagoradio.org. They play hits of the 60s, 70s, and 80s, along with some programming announcements on events going on in the city. We have our YouTube channel, which I hope a lot of y'all are watching this, taking advantage of the YouTube channel. My plan is to expand the use of YouTube to include weekly press release and to to increase the level of transparency and communication within the city. Other social media, I also have Nextdoor account and a Twitter account where y'all can reach me if need be. Something on these social media sites, though, I am ethically prohibited from discussing and negotiating business on any kind of social media sites because there's no record retentions. So I can give statements and I can give opinions, but I cannot discuss or negotiate business. So if you have any of that, please email me. Future, weekly press release via the YouTube, I mentioned that, hopefully some podcasts and other social media type avenues of communication. Some things we've done in transparency. You've noticed over the last few months, I have brought in different people to address things that I thought the community might be interested in. A couple months ago, we had Bar Z and their web app. Last month, we had TAS United on their 311 service. And in the future, you may be hearing something from an organization called OpenGov, which will be, they like to put our financial records out for everybody to see on our website. Vision. How are we increasing our vision? Well, we have how do we get our vision? We have our comprehensive master plan. That's one of the biggest ones, if not the biggest one. Myself and council members, we attend the TML annual conference. We go to workshops like we are next week. We attend CapCog workshops, places like the Institute for Public Policy, and we network with other cities on a quarterly basis through TML Region 10 networking. Again, my talking topics, town hall meetings is a great place for us to get vision on what the citizens would like. My advisory groups that I mentioned earlier, also through the Facebook pages that I mentioned, social media. And then we have our staff, of course. We tap them for their experience, their knowledge, all the workshops that they attend and the networking they do with other individuals in their field of expertise. Planning. So we have several avenues of planning that I like to approach. We obviously have the comprehensive master plan. Beneath that, we have a strategic plan, and that is put together or revised every year through the staff annual retreat and through the council's annual retreat. And we come up with our strategic plan on how we want to address things under the comprehensive master plan. We also have departmental master plans, such as the airport master plan, water and wastewater master plans. We have drought contingency plans. We have a street rehab plan that is currently being revised. We had one in the past. We were not happy with the results that we were getting from our street rehab, and we are going back in and revising that. And when it is completed, and I can't tell you the time frame, hopefully not too long in the future, but when it is revised, it will be on the website, and you should be able to look up when your street is coming up for rehab. We also have capital improvement plans. Under those, inside all of those, we have tactical plans, which is our outlook 3 to 5 years down the road, depending on the project or the department. This is where our 3 to 5 year plan comes in. Action plans are our short-term or 1 to 3 year plans. So everything starts big, works down all the way to the bottom to your action plan, and then you follow it up with your succession plans. 2 types, those are your 2 types under the succession, or your physical assets, because equipment wears out, breaks down, needs to be replaced, and you got to make sure that you've got some kind of succession plan in place to take care of those. And then you've got your intellectual assets, which is your people. People need to be educated so they can move up in their position. And you got more people that are coming in. They have to be trained, and you want to retain your experts. So you've got to have a succession plan on how you're going to keep your intellectual assets within your city. All right. So perspective. When I'm looking at anything, any kind of agenda item or project or program or anything, my perspective that I look at is always, how does it affect the past? How does it affect us right now in the present? And how is it going to affect us in the future? Past, present, and future. And in that, then whatever the agenda item is, I have a thing, and some of you that are in the military and gave warning orders will recognize this. The process I use for evaluation is called OSMEAC. That's the acronym. Stands for Orientation, Situation, Mission, Execution, Administration and Logistics, and Command and Control. When I was in the Marine Corps, this was what we used to give our warning orders. And I have adapted it to use here at the City Council. First one is orientation. That's where my past comes in. I want to know the background, orient myself to the issue, to the item, to the project. What's the background behind it? Next is my situation. That is my present. That's where I'm at right now. What is our current situation? Why is this an issue? Why are we looking at this? Why do we need to do this project? Why do we need to pass this ordinance? How does it affect us right now in the present? Next is mission. That's our future. Where are we going with this item, with this issue, or this project? How does it fit into our comprehensive master plan? How does it fit into our strategic plan moving forward? How does it fit into the department or the project master plan? And any tactical or action or tactical plans, the 3 to 5 year plans that we got going forward. That's my mission. That's what I want to know moving forward. Step 4 of that is execution. That is our 1 to 3 year action plan. What are we going to do, and how are we going to get there? 5th paragraph, administration and logistics. That's my boots on the ground. Who's doing it? What do they need to do? What do they need to get it done? Admin and logistics. And then finally, you follow it up with command and control. That is like, who's in charge? How are they controlling it? What's the oversight? That is where my succession plans come in. I want to know, follow up. Is it succeeding? Are we taking care of our physical assets? Are we taking care of our intellectual assets? Is it going to succeed? Is everything going to succeed? And also under command and control, is the evaluation of whether it was a success or not. So you have a plan for succession, but you also have to evaluate the whole project, whether it was a success or not. All right, some growth data. Moving on to the interesting stuff here. All right, 2017, new residential construction. We had 185 residential homes. Total new value, $41,696,643. In 2018, new residential construction was 276 homes with a total new value of just over $64 million. Currently, on tax rolls, our property values $804,945,000, a little over. So far in the fiscal year 2019, we have 94 permits in the first quarter. That holds true. That puts us on pace for 376 new homes. Based on the value of the last 2 years, the new estimated value added in 2019 would be anywhere from $87 to $90 million. This is all just new residential growth, not commercial, not anything else, just residential. But as you can see, we are growing. I mentioned earlier 1,227 people in 2 years, and we're on a pace this year to do about 800 or 900. All right. Last fiscal year in review and a little bit of preview into the next one. So starting off this fiscal year in November, we had an election. We got 3 new council members, and we also voted to approve changes to our charter. Our annexation ability, we didn't really change that. We just made it in line with what the state law says, saying that we can no longer involuntarily annex anyone. We changed chief executive officer powers. We changed some of the general election requirements, and we made changes to the Board of Adjustment under our charter elections this year. All right, development services. We're getting to some of our departments here. Development services, I already talked to you about the growth that development services has to deal with. But in addition to all the housing and things that development services has to deal with, they're in charge of reviewing and rewriting most of our ordinances. So everything you see council coming up to vote on, ordinance-wise, goes through development services. They have to review, rewrite before it goes to legal, or they work with legal. They have a lot of work, and as you've noticed over the last year, we have already made several changes in our ordinances, especially when it comes to building standards, materials, appearances, how many houses that look alike you can put on the same street, things like that. Mentioned the residential growth already. Commercial and retail growth, development services also deals with that. And currently, our development services director, which is Roy Jambor, is the staff liaison for the Planning and Zoning Commission, the Building and Standards Commission, the Board of Adjustment, the Airport Advisory Board, our Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee, which he shares with our city engineer. Police Department. Calls for service last year, 4,062. Reports, offense reports across the board, that's all reports. Criminal, traffic, anything that may have been an offense. Reports are down 2% from 2017. Traffic citations given was 844, arrests were 161. Working with the ISD, they have an increased presence in the schools this year. For those of you who have got the PowerPoint, you can see a picture on the slide there of our police going through active shooter training and to increase their visibility and communication with the citizens. I have had a couple of officers sit with me at my town hall meetings during what we call Coffee with the Cop, and we will be doing more of that in the future. Public Works Department. In the last year, we hired a new in-house city engineer, Eric Belay. He handles most of our city engineering requirements now so that we do not have to contract out anymore. Over the past year, you've seen, and it's still ongoing right now, our high pressure water line replacement that was gone along Lowman Ford Road and has now turned down Dawn Drive a little bit. The Highland Lake Drive water line replacement. These are high pressure lines that are designed to provide better services for our firefighting capabilities and maintaining pressures in households in the upper pressure planes. We have, due to all the construction going on, we have had tremendous amounts of water and wastewater line extensions and tie-ins, and unfortunately, it has cut our streets up quite a bit. It's just part of the growing pains. We are, as I get to in later slides, working on our pavement and overlays, but the water and wastewater lines are just right now wreaking havoc on some of our streets. Water plant number 2, which used to be at the end of Dawn Drive, has now been decommissioned and completely torn down. Our Public Works Department last year received a grant for reuse water storage, and I just saw a slide recently where they have finally completed that project. They also won an award for TCEQ Technology Award for ground storage. It's a nice award. And our Public Works is also, our engineer is also shares the liaison duties for the Parks and Rec Advisory Committee. Also in Public Works is our street department. We've had some crack sealing programs going on. Our revised resurfacing project, which has just gotten underway. We have got 6 streets done so far this year, and we will be adding on more streets as fast as we can. Some of the delay was due to the fact that we had decided to purchase our own paving equipment. It was supposed to come in December. It did not come in until February, so that delayed some of our overlay projects. But now that we have that equipment, we will be increasing our paving capabilities. The flood didn't help us much either in the fall. We have the new signal light at Lowman Ford Road and Boggy Ford Road. We have put in the safe routes to school sidewalk along Bar K. The flood event, which I mentioned, the cleanup for that, $61,316 is what the city spent on cleanup for the flood. Something else that we got was a CapCog solid waste grant, and that has been used for cleaning up solid waste and bulk waste. So far, we've had one event in the Coyote Trail area, neighborhood of town, and we will be hosting a second event in the springtime, probably in the April timeframe, for another solid waste. And that includes getting rid of tires, what we call BOPATE, batteries, oil, paint, antifreeze, tires, and electronics. So it includes getting rid of some of the household hazardous waste that we can't just put in our trash cans normally. In Green Center, we have added a day to the Green Center. So now instead of 1 day a month, you can go 2 days a month. Economic development. We have a new economic development director. His name is Eric Zeno. He could not be with us tonight, or I would introduce you to him. But when you do meet him, please welcome him aboard. He will be the liaison for our newly formed Economic Development Committee. And we've brought in the Economic Development Director because as we are growing, 1,200 people every 2 years, we need to manage this growth. And it's going to, as people come, the retail is going to follow. So our corridors along 1431, Lowman, Don, these are all going to gradually start increasing in retail growth. And we've got to make sure that we manage it properly We didn't bring him on to necessarily increase our growth and turn us into something, a big city or anything like that. He's brought on to manage it, make sure we get the right type of retail growth in the right areas at the right time, and to help us with revenue generation. If you can see the slide here, got this pie chart, shows our revenues. If you'll look down at the very bottom, you'll see sales tax currently only accounts for 7% of our revenues. Property tax, 43%. You look at some of the cities around us, theirs will be like 50-50 or maybe even upside down the other way. They have huge retail, they get lots of sales tax, and they do not have to rely on property tax to pay for everything. That is something that I would like to skew in that direction. I would like to take less reliance off of our ad valorem property taxes and put it on sales tax and retail growth. I have on here Type B Economic Development Corporation. That is something that we could do with sales tax. Right now, we are getting 1 cent, 1 penny per dollar of sales tax. We could get a second penny, and we could use that on different economic development type projects, but it's currently tied up with Cap Metro. In 2016, we had a vote. The community chose to stay with Cap Metro at that time. However, in the future, it may come up for a vote again, and I would like everybody to just take in consideration the $500,000 and more as it grows that we give to Cap Metro every year, what we could be doing with that 1 cent sales tax that we get. Instead of 7%, it would grow up 10.5%, 14%, whatever it would be. Don't know the exact percentage increase, but it would double our sales tax. Let's see, next slide, excuse me. Sorry about that hum there. Catch my breath. I'm trying to talk fast so that I don't take all your time tonight. All right, Parks and Recreation. All right, you'll see I have quite a few things listed under Parks and Recreation. We currently do not actually have a Parks and Recreation department. However, we do have parks and we do have recreation. We are considering, in this next budget cycle, hiring possibly a new Parks and Recreation director. Considering. Not saying it's going to happen, but we are considering it. And the reason is, here's a list of the things that we've had just in this past year that I can think of off the top of my head. We had a longboard skateboard race just a couple of weeks ago. We have the La Primavera bike race next weekend, 2 weeks from now. We have our 4th of July celebration. We have our National Night Out in combination with our Trunk or Treat on Halloween. We have our tree lighting the 1st of December. We have the Balcones Songbird Festival. We have Lago Fest the first weekend in May. We have a swimming pool. We have baseball fields, and we have tennis courts. A lot of them have been renovated in this past year, including one of the tennis courts now contains 2 pickleball courts that I know of. We may have more pickleball, but I know of 2. We have a new city park coming online. We got the first grant a couple of years ago. We've completed phase 1 of the city park, which is the design phase. We are now moving into the second phase, and we have just recently put in our second grant application to Texas Parks and Wildlife, hopefully for another large grant for them to start construction on our city park, which will be out west of town on the property that contains Cedar Breaks. In conjunction with our new city park, we have a conservancy out there that is creating a trail system. That is the Turnback Canyon Trail and their conservancy. They have also applied for a Parks and Wildlife grant, and the grants are written in such that we are partnering together. So hopefully both groups will be awarded Parks and Wildlife grants, and we can not only work on our park, but also work on the trail system that'll go from the lake all the way into Balcones Canyonland and branch off in other areas. We have Keep Lago Vista Beautiful. which maintains several of the city areas of parks, or our different areas, common areas and stuff like that. We have the Veterans Memorial Park, and right now the engineer and Development Services Director handles the liaison for the Parks and Rec, but if we get a new director, he would also work with the Parks and Recreation Department to be a liaison. Next slide. Rusty Allen Airport. According to the Texas Aviation Economic Impact Study, our airport has a direct impact on this area, 15 jobs and $1 million worth of output. They have a total impact on the state of 34 jobs with a payroll, 914,000, and an economic output of $3.5 million. That is a pretty nice output impact for our airport. Most people don't even really realize that we have an airport. I think everybody knows we do, but they don't realize just the actual impact that the airport has on our community. The city over the past year has purchased new property. We will be looking at providing hangar space and meeting space and office space for people flying in that need a place to get out and take care of some business. We've added new airplane tie downs. We hopefully will be having a new funding agreement that is on our agenda tonight. We have a new city-owned fuel farm. At one point we did, and I think we still may have the cheapest fuel in the area, which has been a nice revenue for the city. And we also now have a courtesy vehicle at the airport for people flying in that need to actually get into town. They can check out a courtesy vehicle and come shop, eat at our restaurants, and spend their tax dollars in Lago Vista. Library. Over the past year, they had 21,681 visitors. 5,791 of them actually participated in a program. They have 14,777 pieces of material in their collection, and they have 27,597 pieces of material in circulation. Patrons, by visiting our library and using their materials and resources, saved $211,000 last year. Our volunteers, the Friends of the Library, put in 1,615 volunteer hours at the library last year, and we are very thankful for those libraries. And Jan Steele, our librarian, is also the liaison for our library advisory board, and hopefully in the future we'll be expanding their spaces and their programs. Golf course. We brought in a new golf course director last year, Chris Godwin. He is now in his second year. We just recently sold Highland Lake Golf Course. It is now called Green Deer. If you have not heard, Green Deer is the new name of the golf course, and speculation is they would have it up and running around the 1st of April. We look forward to that operation of that new Green Deer golf course. We did some renovation on the Lago Vista golf course. It had a bit of structural damage and electrical damage. We had to go in and do some safety repair work and bring it up to code and get it structurally sound again. And in the meantime, we also went in and did a slight beautification project on there to make it more modern and clean and up to date. We have hired a new contractor to run the grill there. It is now called Habanero Grill. If you haven't been there, check out Habanero Grill at the golf course. I know the golf course has been, under scrutiny for several years now because of its hit on our budget. Last year, it did come in at 10% under his projected budget for 2018, and we're hoping this year, we lowered it by another 10%, and we're hoping this year that it will also come in under that. It's not a huge amount, but it's a progress in the right direction. Hopefully, eventually, we can get the golf course into a neutral position. Legal representation. We also have a new law firm this year, Bjorkes Law Firm. Our lead attorney is Dorothy Palumbo. She is with us tonight. We also have the services of Erin Silvetta. You will see her on occasion. And if you come to our courts, which hopefully you don't, you will get to meet Alessandra Gad. Is it Gad? Gad. Alessandra. We welcome our new legal representation. All right, some general fund data. So in 2017, we had ad valorem tax revenues, $2,929,600. 2018, our taxes were $3,130,623. That's an increase of just over $200,000, or a 6.86% increase. There's too many S's in there. And that's largely due to that new growth. Those 276 new homes and that property value that I showed you on an earlier slide, that's where that increase comes from. Sales tax, 2017, $443,462. 2018, $468,573, which is an increase of $25,111, or 5.66%. So you can see our growth is our sales tax has kind of stayed pace with our new growth. So new growth has come in and they've increased their sales tax, but we're stagnant. We're not really getting any more retail growth or sales tax opportunities. It's basically staying in line with just more people coming in and spending money. These numbers that I just told you is out of the general fund, and this is for our operation and maintenance side only. I did not include the numbers that go to the debt services because that's a set amount and doesn't really change. So I did not include the debt services numbers in that. It's operation maintenance only. All right, this is just a picture slide. I want to show you our revenues and expenses. At some point, you can take a look at that slide and just see where all we spend our money and how we get our money. Again, the only thing I like to point out here is sales tax. It's only 7%. Property tax is 43%. Again, I would like to change that in a different direction, so that we're not getting all of our money from your property taxes. Utility fund, 2017 utility revenues, $5.9 million, just over. 2018, our utility revenues, just under $7.8 million. That is an increase of about $1.9 million, or 31.43%. Now, unlike the general fund, this data here includes all utility fund revenues. So that's our line extensions, that's our taps, that's everything included. So that growth that you see, 12%, those 76 homes, is a huge portion of this increase because of the fees that have been adjusted to allow for this growth. Over the past year, so we have changed our fee structure where we no longer give 150 feet free of water line extensions, and we've adjusted all of our taps and tie-ins and impact fees and everything to be in line with this area of the country, and our fees are actually set at just what it costs us to hire somebody to do that work. But that has brought in, our revenues did go up $1.9 million over last year. I've got a house for sale, if anybody's interested. All right. What does this mean? So these are our fund balances: general fund, utility fund, and our capital projects fund. These funds are assets. It's not cash on hand. It is assets and all those funds. So it also includes physical assets. But our general fund, $4.3 million. Utility fund, $1.1 million. Capital projects, $4.5 million. Okay, our general fund this past year went up $971,000, and our utility fund went up almost $250,000. Those again are those are increases based pretty much on the growth that we've been experiencing, and so those funds have gone up, and that gives us more money and more assets to use when it comes to our infrastructure, and that is what it will be going for in the future. You can see the other fund that I included there was our capital projects. You see it says a negative $2,011,000. That is what we have spent in this past year on our capital improvement projects. Right now, the balance in that fund is $4.5 million, and so that is what we have to spend on our capital improvement projects going forward at this point. Over to the right, you will see that our current total debt, a little over $35 million. That doesn't include the interest. With interest, it's about $49 million, I believe. But that's total debt right now, $35 million. So the reason I have this slide, and I've been showing you these data, these money and stuff like that, is because what does this mean? This means we have more money to spend on our infrastructure and our projects that we want to get done due to the growth that we're experiencing. It has allowed us to not take on any new debt as we keep adding to these funds and growing them and stuff like that. We hope to, in the future, get to a point when something happens and we actually need to do something. We're being proactive instead of being reactive like we were in the past. Now we'll have money set aside in these funds so that if something breaks down or something happens major, we've got cash on hand. We can fix it. We do not have to sell bonds to get anything fixed. Any additional money that we have going forward with this new growth, we'll be looking at eliminating debt. We want to try and get rid of as much of that $35 million as fast as we can. If we can stay where we're not taking on any new debt, we're paying down debt. Eventually, down the road, maybe we can get to where we have very little debt or only debt as needed in emergency situations. And if everything allows and growth continues, which you never know when the bottom's going to drop out. But with everybody moving into Austin and Google and Amazon and all these people and coming to Round Rock and surrounding areas, there is a good possibility that our growth will continue at a pretty good pace. So taking our new growth, no new taxes, no increase on taxes to existing people, but just new growth, hopefully at some point we'll actually be able to reduce the tax rate and any fees. One thing we have currently being done right now is our water and wastewater rate study. We conducted that several years ago, and at that time, we were 18% lower than what we should be, and we couldn't dump 18% on everybody at one time, but we started doing increments of 3 to 5%. Some years we did, some years we didn't, based on revenues and stuff, but we've been having to increase our monies to get to where we were supposed to be at that time. We were 18% behind. But with this new growth and stuff and our revenues, hopefully this study will come back and will tell us that things can change. So, who are we? What do we want? I ask all of y'all, moving forward from here, please, if you haven't, go out and look through the comprehensive master plan. That's our standard operating guidebook. That is what we're directed to go by. That was put together, with effort through the citizens. And I know some of you say it doesn't represent you, but that is what we're supposed to go by. You don't have to follow a letter of the law, but please read it, and you hopefully understand some of the things that we take into consideration and how we are working. Again, our managed growth, our new economic development, engineer, everything we got going on. We're really looking to manage our growth going forward with our retail and our residential growth here. Again, I mentioned all the revenues and stuff. We are looking not only the infrastructural upgrades that you see going on, and I apologize, I thought you could see that writing on there, but it didn't seem to come through on the computer. But the upgrades that you already see going on, and we hope to drastically increase those upgrades over the next several years. Get rid of the potholes and do some overlays. One of the major overlays we will be having coming will be Boggy Ford Road. That is one of the most heavily trafficked by our heavy equipment, dump trucks and construction trucks. And because of all the construction going on in Old Lago, that road is getting heavily trafficked. And that is going to be one of our first major overlay projects. It's going to be Boggy Ford Road. And we're always looking for an improved quality of life. Something we will be tapping into moving forward are our community development block grants. Those are grants that allow us to add cultural amenity type things to the city itself. So our libraries, our meeting spaces, things where we can hold cultural activities like our arts classes and our pottery classes and things like that. We can go out and apply for grants to help improve our community and our quality of life. And I want everybody to know that we fully understand nobody wants Lakeway. I put the Don't Lakeway Our Lago muscle shirt up there, and I apologize to whoever designed that. I don't know how that picture got to me, and I cannot acknowledge the actual designer. I put designer up unknown up there, but I am using yours to let everybody know that, yes, we understand we do not want to Lakeway Our Lago, but we do want to manage our growth. So, last slide. I know you're all excited now. I tried to read as fast as I could. So thank you, Lago Vista. The city would like to recognize everybody and appreciate your efforts. Everybody that we work with, all of the POAs, not just Lago Vista POA, but all of them. The school district, Chamber of Commerce, our fire department, which is ESD 1 and 7. All of the people that serve on our boards, our commissions, our committees. Everybody in our civic groups like Lions Club and the Women's Club and Golf Association and Boy Scouts and every other civic group out there that I can't think of right now. And of course, especially you, the citizens. Thank you for everything that y'all do. And together we can live like we're on vacation. And again, thank you. And this is not going to be a question and answer. So if you have questions, comments, contact us next week. Thank you. And now that I cannot speak anymore because I'm hoarse. Y'all wake up here?
Mm-hmm.
So, I see Tim nodding over there.
I'm present.
All right, public hearings. Number 4, the Lago Vista City Council will hold a public hearing and discuss a potential conditional use permit approval pursuant to Section 17 of Chapter 14 of the Lago Vista Code of Ordinances to allow exceptions to the accessory building standards otherwise applicable at 4031 Outpost Trace in Country Club Estates, Section 9, Lot 2245 Alpha, and the public hearing is already open. It is being continued. We go to staff presentation.
Yes, sir, and hopefully I'm going to set a record here. As we discussed it at the last meeting, we became aware of potential defects that were not originally included in the application. We confirmed that those defects do in fact exist, and pursuant to the recommendation that Bobby made, we would ask you to give us a motion and a vote to remand it back to P&Z so that that same application can address those two defects. They're basically setback issues, one with the new building, one with the existing. That was not part of the original application.
And Roy, if that's sent back to P and Z, they'll address all of the issues
Yes, sir.
in one.
It's a notice thing, you know, it was brought up, and I think correctly, that in theory, if somebody was seen the packet and it would have mentioned those two items,
Right.
they might have showed up at the public hearing and made a comment one way or another. They didn't really have that opportunity.
So the slab, the fence, the screening,
Well, the fence is being addressed separate.
okay,
And, you know, thanks to Mr. Collins and the Board of
and Board of
Adjustment,
Adjustment.
who agreed to have their meeting on a different day. We're gonna expedite that, so that now you will know when you address that, that it will be legal for that fence to remain in place, even if it has to be repaired or rebuilt.
So P and Z will then look at the exceptions to the accessory building,
It's
the
building
screening, the
being-
height, the setbacks, and the architectural and the materials.
Right, and can address the fact that it doesn't really have the full setback that it's supposed to.
Okay.
For one, the new building, and the other, the existing
Okay,
accessory building.
all right.
And
All right.
we would ask that you leave the public hearing open still until it comes back. It'll be back to you once P.
So Dottie, we can make a motion and leave it, public hearing open at the same time?
You can do that. You have advertised it that you were going to continue it and leave it open. So I would recommend going ahead and doing that.
Okay.
But you did say that you're going to hold the public hearing and discuss the potential conditional use permit. So that gives you the right to remand it back.
Okay.
Does that take a motion or just direction?
I would just go ahead, just to make the record clear, to make a motion.
Okay. So at this time,
Yes.
well, I do have the public, it is a public hearing. Is there anybody in the audience that cares to speak on this topic? I have nobody signed up, but I just want to make sure before I move forward. All right. Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that this be sent back to P and Z for them.
I'll second it. All right, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Hearing none, motion carries unanimous. It will be sent back to planning and zoning, and the public hearing remains open.
Got it.
Number 5, Lago Vista City Council will hold a public hearing to discuss, take possible action on ordinance number 19-02-21-01, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Lago Vista, Texas, amending Appendix A, Fee Schedule, Article 10.000, Parks and Recreation Fees to modify 10.200, Golf Course Fees, providing a savings clause, providing a severability clause, and providing an effective date. And I believe this public hearing is still open.
Yes.
No, sir. You'd have to open it for the first time.
Oh, that's right, because it wasn't.
We
published,
advertised
right?
it for this
All right,
meeting.
You're right, you're right. I remember now. Okay, I will open the public hearing at 7:36 PM. And we'll start with staff presentation.
Mr. Mayor, I'll do this presentation. I do want to point out, since we do have Counselor Robbins on a cruise ship or somewhere else out in the world, not here, there may be a delay. So if he goes to say something, we might just have to pause for a few minutes. as he points at us because he wants to talk. But now back to this issue. I'll let you know that staff is presenting the new fee schedule for the golf course to the city council in line with the last presentation at the last council meeting. There are two items included in this proposed change. The first is for the Green Deer Golf Course single membership, which is an addendum that will provide a membership option for the Green Deer members to have Monday through Thursday play at the Lago Vista Golf Course for an annual fee of $300 plus $14 per round to be paid for a cart fee. The second item is for a Green Deer family membership. It would be $500, and then that would also have the same cart fee per player to be paid of $14 each time of the playing. The other item that has been changed is there's a language item that is on a page that I can't see, but it is to create the simulator fees for the brand new simulator that is in our clubhouse. And those fees are, as stated by the staff summary and the fee schedule, to be determined by the golf course manager and Mike Arms with approval by the city manager. Mr. Arms, for future reference, is here in the back. And the reason he's not arbitrarily picked out as just a guy we like or want to talk to is because Mr. Arms is the owner operator of that apparatus. To date, Mayor, we have not received comments. Each of these fees do include unlimited range balls at our course with those memberships, just like members at the Lago Vista course. So we have not received comments during this time from the community.
All right, questions for staff from council?
No, just the $300 and the $500 fee, that's based on new members that are signing up on Green Deer fees, or those special fees that they offer to some of the members? Is this full membership fee?
Mr. Mayor, this is a full member at Green Deer
At
Country
Green Deer,
Club.
okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay.
So they pay Green Deer, and then Green Deer pays us for each single
Yes.
member or
Yes.
family.
Okay.
My question is there a ceiling? Is there a certain number of memberships, or is this for any?
Mayor,
Is
at
it
this
unlimited?
time, we have not said there's a ceiling or a minimum number. No, sir.
So he needs to get 100 members, 200?
I thought we discussed that previously and it was 20 members.
From what I remember was 40 to 50 last time. That was for certain memberships, but I've heard different recently, so I just wanted to clarify.
It was 40.
Mr. Mayor, the original option that he put out there was to have 40 memberships that he wanted to sell, and that was his personal ceiling. But pertaining to this fee schedule, we do not have a ceiling set in the document.
Some of it's still negotiable.
Mary, I would say anything's negotiable. If that's something we want to do, we would put that in our schedule. And then in a separate agreement, we would clarify those ceiling for that owner of that course.
Well, I don't think the ceiling would need to be in this document. It would just be something that the club manager would monitor and let us know when we get close to whatever number city council decided on, right? Or would it have to be in this document? I'm asking.
Mayor, I'd kick it back over to Dottie just in terms of the logistics. If we set a ceiling, I think for the operational, it'd be nice to have a separate agreement that says it, but it's however legal wants to handle it, it's how we would handle it.
You probably should have a separate agreement just to make sure that it's something you can enforce. So,
Well, unless this proves to take away membership from Lago Vista course and becomes detrimental to the Lago Vista course, I don't see where a ceiling would be appropriate, because that's $300 to $500
revenue.
Each person.
Revenue that we don't get now.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
I always will
I mean,
play
we'd have-
devil advocate, man. You know, I bring up the good and the bad, you know, come on.
but
No problem.
again, I guess this collaboration with Green Deer.
Yeah.
We'll have to see how it goes forward and see, you know,
I'd like to do
what kind of
whatever.
impact it has on our municipal courts.
Is the Monday through Thursday part still in there?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Mayor, yes, sir.
And $14 green fee.
For-
Park fee.
Well, we don't get to vote on this time, do we?
We can.
Or
It's
Mayor,
only
based
for-
on the
it's
public
only for
hearing,
action.
we've satisfied, Mayor, this would be the second hearing of this item, and we have the public hearing, so you could,
It only requires one.
Okay.
Okay, and this is the second time council has heard it, so,
Okay,
but we're currently
in the public
hearing.
right, okay.
So nothing's really changed since last time we heard this?
Mayor, there has been the change with the family membership. We talked about it, but we didn't have it on the actual ordinance. So that family option of the 500, even though we mentioned it, wasn't on the paper of the last meeting. And we just didn't have it on there. So I want you to know on the paper, that's why we made sure we updated it so you see both of those options. Other than that, no changes, no, sir.
There is one other one, the simulator was not on the last one.
Have you all agreed on what the price of the simulator fee should be? I mean, it says to be determined, but have you?
Mayor, we're ready to roll it out. Obviously, if you've been by the clubhouse, you see that it's there, and we've discussed a couple rates. We don't have a final rate number, but one option, just in ballpark, you could be $10 an hour to play. You could be $20 for a round of golf per person. There's some different options that, same as any other golf course, we have the ability to say certain days are better rates than other days.
Right.
And so the goal is to get this approved by council and then to put that on the wall when you're at the simulator so that these rainy days or cold days, people come in and they do it. And then we'll also have rates for different testing opportunities. So just like if you want to come in and you want to get fit for clubs, you can do that while you're in the simulator. And that's something that's the benefit for the staff side of having the simulator.
So would Mr. Arms be running this, or would this be something turnkey?
It's turnkey, Mayor. So it goes in, just like if you want to go play 18 holes, you come in, you pay at the desk based on the agreement that we have in place. We would we'd pay the contractor at the end of the month, the dollar figure, and then we'd move on. So our clubhouse staff would be the people responsible for lining people up and getting it set up.
Gotcha.
Can this also be used for training purposes, swing analysis?
Yes. If your swing's not good, it will not recognize it though. So it can only help to a certain level, not you specifically, but those like me, it can't do miracles.
So the one other thing that I didn't understand necessarily on here is the unlimited range balls. I know we've got a pretty small area there that we do that. Does Green Deer have its own facility for that?
Mayor, at this time, Green Deer does not have a driving range. And so we only wanted to open that up to their members. One of the things they had asked for originally was, could they pay for a period of weekly, monthly payment so that all of their players could come over and have range balls? That's a challenge just for the golfer in itself. You don't want to go to the one course and hit range balls and then come over to play. We've learned that when the city owned both courses. They do want to build a driving range, and so in the future, maybe that's outside, but the range balls for our members are included, and so that was part of the discussion, was to be able to allow them the same thing. Typically what you see is hitting a bucket of balls before your round, but for other members, hypothetically speaking, that may live down the road, they could come over and hit those. So that right now it's only tied to these memberships.
So basically all the membership people could take over the driving range and we have no paying customers?
Yes, sir. Theoretically,
No
they
one has
could.
priority over the other?
No, sir.
It's impractical for them to come over on the day they play, but they could come over and practice.
We can change that if we need to along the way.
And Don, what you typically see is you will have a group of 4 to 8 people out on the driving range at a time. That's about all there ever is. Sometimes in the afternoon, there'll be 2 or 3 groups that will come out and maybe hit a bucket of balls. But even on the heaviest days of play, even with some of our tournaments, it never gets so crowded that it's really a problem.
I'm just wondering if there was a revenue source there we were missing out on to help fund the golf course.
Well, our other memberships all include the golfing range. All the other memberships have unlimited balls.
But that's something we decided to also, right?
Yeah, that's something that was approved
That's part of the
earlier.
membership, so we
Yeah.
can't change it until the renewal's on. If it
We-
becomes,
If it becomes a problem, then we can always change it.
But the idea here, isn't the idea here to provide range balls when they're playing on that particular day? And not, we're not going to have people just because they have this $300 membership through Green Deer, just come over and hit balls all day long.
Mayor, the theory is that's what's going to happen. But the way it's written, they have Monday through Thursday unlimited range balls, even if they're not playing around. If they're a member and they have that, they'll be there, they can have unlimited access. So yes, they could be 5 people, 5 hours, just swinging away like crazy people.
Nobody can do it that long.
I agree, but they could. It's just that option.
And potentially, if he sells a membership next week, we approve if he sells a membership until that course opens, whether they're playing around at our course or not, they can come and hit range balls. But again, this one,
Yeah.
again, because this is something we can address at any time.
Right.
In the Men's Golf Association.
If we need to adjust it, we can always adjust
Well,
it.
everybody gets it.
The only question I have for you, Josh, has to do with the reciprocal part with Green Deer. Has that been worked out? Or still working on that?
It has been agreed to in theory. We're good. We just have to get a document now. He still doesn't have any of his operational documents. He has a page form that says, I'm a member. I carry that. I hand you cash. That's what they have. So we're going to get that document. As soon as we have it, we'll send it over to Dottie for review. And I'm excited to bring that back to the council pretty soon just to get a sign off on it. But mostly just so our people know that it'll be an option soon.
so if we approve this tonight, you're gonna hold on to this document until you hear back from him. We're not just gonna sign a document now that takes any reason for him to play along away, right?
Mayor, no, I would not do that. If you approve the fee schedule now, the fee schedule will go into effect tonight, effectively.
So we just have to count on his goodwill.
Just going to have a little faith.
Have a little faith.
At least we've discussed
Again,
it.
again, this can always be readdressed.
We're not signing any long-term commitment here.
No.
Mayor, what happens if and it just goes back to what you're saying, if we go back to address fees, typically what we would do, even if we're changing the annual fee member for a person, if your membership started in January, City Council changes the membership fee in June. When it comes back through to January the next time, you get the whole year and then it changes. So same thing here. If they pay for one of their members and we want to take away the range ball option at any point, that member would have that access for the whole time of their annual membership. Then they would go back to the new ordinance update at that time.
Based on their annual renewal.
Correct. Based on renewal dates, that's how we deal with any kind of membership plan or fee schedule changes.
Yeah.
We honor the fee schedule of the time when the person became a member.
Okay.
Right, any other questions?
Nope.
All right, public hearing. It's open to the members of the audience. If anybody would like to speak, I do not have anybody signed up for this agenda item. Now is your time. All right, hearing none, I will close the public hearing at 7:51 PM. And do we have any further discussion by council? If not, it's open for action.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we pass ordinance number 19-02-21-01.
All right, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. I waited for you. Hearing none, the motion carries unanimous. All right, we will go to item number 7. Discussion and possible action regarding resolution number 19-1791, a resolution by the City Council of the City of Lago Vista, Texas, declaring certain real property owned by the City of Lago Vista to be surplus prior to subsequently considering the conveyance of that property in accordance with all applicable state regulations and in a manner beneficial to the City of Lago Vista. These are action items that we're on right now.
Mayor, if I may, I'm going to take this one. Roy put together the staff summary for us. He's been working with Dottie's team to create the proper channel by which we can take action. The city obtained these lots, these strips, these pieces of property, whatever you want to call it, in a settlement agreement a few years back. You can see this inside of Roy's staff summary. What we're trying to do now, we talked about this before, what the city staff is recommending is being able to provide an avenue for property owners to acquire these adjacent pieces of property adjacent to their property. And just like every other disposal of property or for the city to sell property, we have to declare that surplus. You have to either advertise it, you have to get a not a survey.
A bid?
Appraisal, thank you. You have to get an appraisal on the lots in order for us to disseminate this property out to those people. So we've had 6, 7, 8 people contacted us sporadically through the year that have said, we're interested in these lots. There may be 3 or 4 people sitting in this room right now that may be interested in that. So what we've said is, although some of those lots, some of those pieces of property have value, we are interested in being able to return them to property owners for a fair market value. What we've told them throughout the year, anytime a request has come in, is you need to get that appraisal to show us what fair market value is. The city went through this process previously. I believe Councilor Robbins was working with the city at that time when some of these actions took place. The city found a fair value. They offered these lots up to people. Some people took advantage of it. Some people didn't take advantage of it. Now there are more people saying we'd like to have that opportunity, and so we want to create that process. When we're telling people that they have to get that appraisal, some people have come back to us and said, well, why didn't the city pay for the appraisal? And we tell them, we already own the property. We're not going to appraise it when we own it. If you want it, you do this. We had 2 people, I believe. One definitely sent in an appraisal to us. A second may have submitted it. I'm not sure if he submitted it. But we do have a fair market rate for this property at this time. So what we're asking at this time, and we're presenting this to the council because you've not heard it and the community's not really heard it real well, what we're asking you to consider is declaring these properties surplus, that they're not of our need. Okay. So I'm not sure if our documentation is complete yet in terms of legally, if we feel confident with our resolution and listing all the properties. But nonetheless, we're presenting it to you so you know where we're at, and then I'll kick it over to Dottie.
Right. In state law, these are narrow strips of land or just useless pieces of land to the city. And surplus may not be the correct word because the one statute says you don't have to bid if these are narrow strips of land that are unusable to the city. But you still need to get fair market value, which is where if the property owner wants it, it would be split to go one half to the property owner, one half to the adjacent if it's in between a property. Some of these are submerged properties. And so we still need to determine which ones need to be attached on Exhibit A to the resolution.
Okay, questions? One, are we offering up all of them? Because I know at one time we were discussing holding on to some of them to maybe make pocket parks out of. So at this time, are we talking about putting all of them up as surplus property?
Mayor, and it's not all of them at this time, and that's where we're looking at the list as well. There are a couple that are not connected in its entirety to some areas that we've looked at and said that they could have beneficial value to the city at a later date. However, the intention is if we've not earmarked a piece of property, that we would allow it to be considered by the adjacent property owner.
Okay. Now, previously, the submerged properties, when we went to sell them, we zoned them P1, which I believe gave them the lowest fair market value on that as far as tax goes. These little strips, do they have to have an appropriate zoning before they can be put out there?
No, they're already in the zoning that the
So they would
property
be
they're
zoned
attached
as
to.
what they are, they would be a commercial or C1 or, R1 or R2 or, okay,
Whatever the
Yes.
house is. or-
Yes.
okay.
Whatever the house is.
Well, if you're talking about between two adjacent houses, they would become part of whatever your status on your house is.
I live on one of these, so I can tell you it's 20 feet wide and whatever your property width is, so it's 60 to 80 feet. So you're looking at 10 by 60 or 10 by 80, unless you own more than one lot. So you're looking at, 600 to 800 square feet. So whatever that value would be.
Mr. Mayor, do any properties have, there's an easement or anything that needs to happen?
Mayor,
That would be subtract-
there are some properties that would have a utility easement. We've come across a couple of these properties. If you recall, there was a convenience store that this council has considered, and there's one of these pieces of property in between two lots that they would like to purchase. There's a water line that goes through that property. That wouldn't impact the ability to sell it. It would just impact the fact that they would have to dedicate that easement to the city if it's not already dedicated to us. They would just know that.
Okay.
And then they would have to deal with the requirements and restrictions of that
Okay.
easement.
So we're just looking to give you action. We don't have to have the list of all these pieces. We don't have to have them all listed out and say, we can just give you a general direction to list this as surplus property and go out and to file your public notice, and is that what we're looking for?
Theoretically, I'm actually really good, Mayor, if we were to, if after the discussion, be able to take this to the next council meeting and let us bring it back for the first March meeting. That way, we're making sure that all of our documentation is correct. I just don't want us to take an action if we're not as confident on our resolution and the documents.
Okay.
We just haven't had that opportunity to talk about this in public with anyone, and so we wanted to pitch it out there, let you be aware of what it is, give us some more time, and then come back for consideration.
It might be helpful just to give us, when you determine a few of the lots, to give us a few of the lots so that we can go look at it, like P&Z has to do, where they have to go look at the.
Well, and again, I brought up, the reason I asked if we were putting them all out there is because of my last youth advisory committee meeting, that was something that they were looking forward to as their next annual project, is maybe working on with the community and KLVB and actually turning one of these parcels into a pocket park.
And Mayor, that's still going to be an option because there's going to be a lot of these properties that still are not purchased by individuals. So what we'll also do, I don't think we added it on this one. What we'll do is we'll do that similar land map that we showed you before at the retreat, and we'll highlight those and bring them back on the map. A lot of these are described on coordinates. You could look at those areas. But even though maybe we even had 20 people that could have been interested, there are going to be a lot of pieces of property that are still going to be open. What we've already seen, there are some property owners that, for example, if there's property in between my property and your property, Mayor, I want mine, you don't want yours, so I already am asking you to sign over your lot. And so these are things that we'll consider if people are interested, but the way we're setting it up is it's got to be adjacent to your property, how it was before.
So this is an observation, I'm not commenting good or bad either way. But where I live now, I have one of these pieces of land, goes behind my house, goes up to Green Deer Golf Course. And that is a huge corridor for the coyotes and the foxes. I go out in my backyard in the evening and I'll have coyotes sitting in the backyard. And they travel through these strips all the time because there's no fences. All my neighbors have fences, but yet there's a 20-foot wide gap. And I'm not looking to necessarily interrupt the coyotes' habitat, but on a safety aspect, if the owners were to buy these strips, bring their fences together, now it cuts off these corridors that these coyotes and foxes are using to travel from the lake to the golf course and things like that. Just an observation.
Would the zoning change to residential if the person buys the adjacent lot? It goes from the lowest to a residential?
Mayor, right now, they're not necessarily zoned. What we were talking about earlier were just the lakefront underwater lots. Those are the ones that were zoned the lower. The pieces of property now are zoned as they would be connected to some of those other residential lots. They have the same zoning.
Just a little background. The lots that we offered up years ago, our ordinance stated that in order for you to have a boat dock, you had to have a primary structure on that piece of property. So kind of find out those submerged pieces of property were separate pieces of property that were platted separate. So people owned a house, had a boat dock, but they didn't own the land underneath it. And they were being held hostage by the people that did own that underwater piece of property and said, you're gonna have to buy this from me, pay me rent, or you gotta get rid of your boat dock. And so when the city acquired these pieces of property, we wanted to make sure we got it to those property owners so that they could be in compliance with their ordinances. And the best way to do it was to zone it a P1 and give them the lowest taxable rate on it because it was unusable underwater property. That's why those properties were P1. But these lots, has been stated, are already zoned residential, so they would not change.
And just
Sir.
for edification, you bring up a relevant point. Our ordinance allows you to fence a property without a primary structure on it, which means you don't have to replat it. But our ordinance does prevent you from building a boathouse on a separate lot unless it's divided by a street, which means if you want to build a boathouse on one of the submerged strips, you do have to replat it, but not rezone it.
Okay.
Right?
Mr. Mayor, do we have any number on how many of these strips there are?
Mayor, yes, we do. In the world of one of us has it.
They're just not in this room right now.
But Chris Martinez is not anywhere close to the city right now. So my thought is that there's 60 to 80.
There's a fair amount, yes.
That's a good answer. There's a
There's
fair amount.
I'm just wondering, this first time we're hearing this, I personally would like to see something that showed us where those lots are, so that we have some idea of what we're looking at, and also have the opportunity to look at some of those that we may truly want to hang on to for those pocket parks and those kind of things, because as we look around our neighborhoods, it's a possibility that we would see lots that are close to us that could really offer an opportunity for our citizens. So I personally would like to table this until our next meeting, and to have Chris provide us with something that shows us where these lots are. Is that possible?
It is an action item, however, staff has recommended no action. So we can either make a motion to table, or we can, no action.
Well, I'd make a motion to table it at this point.
I'll second it.
Second.
Just trying to stay awake.
What was that?
Keep up with us, Frank.
You're a little late, Frank.
All right, I have a motion in 2 seconds. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The motion is tabled. All right, we will go back to number 6. Discussion and consideration of resolution number 19-1790, a resolution by the City Council of the City of Lago Vista, Texas, accepting from Neffendorf, Doss and Company, PC, the audit for fiscal year 2017-2018.
Mayor Keith arrived, so here you go. He's got the floor.
All right.
And he has a box of stuff as well.
Yeah, oh, he's got paper. More paper. The only, we went over this, the only change was we had to add a paragraph to the opinion letter. Because of the new GASB 75, we had to put an emphasis matter in there. And it's just,
So is that different? Oh.
yeah.
Yeah, okay. One little
It
change.
just got, on the opinion paragraph, we had to add emphasis matter paragraph.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, you're interested about the animals, city, I was at before this, they had an interesting presentation. They've got a real bad deer population.
Yeah.
God,
So do we.
they had a presentation on what they were gonna try to do,
Thank you.
to try to get that, and it's a common and getting worse problem.
Thank you. Well, according to our police reports, our deer population has actually decreased recently over the last few years, or at least the number of carcass pickups has.
You get a summary too. We got a condensed, we got the big version and a condensed version. How you doing?
Pretty good, how are you?
All right.
You want these back? Can you recycle them or something?
Yeah, we can give them back to Star and just change out the pages, unless you might need to pass some more out. But you can keep it if you want, because I don't have to have it back.
He doesn't want it back.
Don't need two.
I got enough paper.
My office refused
Yeah.
Second edition.
There. Yeah, there you go. All right. I'm probably one of the few people in the world that really enjoys governmental accounting and auditing. And I enjoy working with people, and I appreciate always getting opportunity to meet and talk to people about it. And a couple of weeks ago, we had a meeting with Star, Josh, and a couple of councilmen, and we went over this audit report in pretty good detail. And I thought that was a good meeting, and I like to see that. I like to see people who are interested in this and care. And that's my story tonight. No. Anyway, for you, those of you, there's a couple of new members. I'm Keith Neffendorf, as he said, out of Fredericksburg, Texas. We did the audit for the city, and it's a good audit report. I will tell you that as a brief refresher, starting in 2004, when I referred to GASB, that's the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. And so they made us do two sets of financial statements. One governmental type statement, like Star keeps the records on, what y'all adopt the budget, set the tax rate on. The second set is the GASB 34 model, where we have to include all your capital assets, depreciation, long-term debt, and come up with a net income just like a business would. And so both sets of those are presented in this audit report. There's a reconciliation to show you how to get from the governmental set to the GASB 34 set, okay? Then, starting in 2015, all the governmental entities now have to include, GASB 68 required us to record a net pension liability or asset for every governmental unit. So we've done that, and that's been going on for the last 4 years. And as you'll see in the audit report, actually y'all's TMRS, the Texas Municipal Retirement System, is funded at 97%. And so it's in real good shape. Starting this year, this fiscal year, GASB came out with GASB 75. So now the TMRS also has a supplemental death benefit fund where it pays what's called other post-employee benefit. And so therefore now, in their infinite wisdom, now we have to book a liability for that liability from the TMRS on y'all's financial statements. But remember, GASB 68, GASB 75 only apply to the GASB 34 statements, okay? So in real life accounting, for STAR's purposes, you're still just showing whatever you sent to the retirement system each month as your contributions and the city's matching portion, okay?
Gotcha.
And the sad part is this GASB 75 liabilities we'll see come on y'all's city is about $180,000 liability. And what your contribution is for it each year amounts to about $10,000, okay? All right. The audit report themselves is a good, clean audit report. And what I'd like to do, what I've done this year, I've started doing is a condensed version where I hit the highlights. So instead of going through 60-something pages of data, I've condensed it down to about 4 or 5. And at any time you have any questions, you just stop and ask me. I'll be glad to answer them. So what I've done is give you a reference chart with the results and comments and give you some comparative results for the city for last year. Okay, the first one, of course, on pages 2 and 4, we gave you all an unqualified opinion, a clean opinion. That's what every city governmental unit strives for. Then, in the reference to the A1, remember the first 2 statements I'm going to be discussing, A1 and B1, are the GASB 34. Those are the business type models. Okay, on the A1, as you can see the comparative totals, last year was a real good operating year for the city. As you can see, the total assets increased by over $2 million, and then what everybody's interested down there, the last line, the total net position increased from 53.7 million to 57.4 million. So you had a 2.7 million increase in your net position. That's shown right below that on your Exhibit B1 reference to the revenues and expenses. See, last year the city had revenues of $20,084,220, expenses of $16,206,311, so a net income of $3,877,909, which is about $3 million increase over the prior year. And then, of course, as I explained before, we had to book the prior period adjustment for that GASB 75 liability. It was $152,000. The fund financial statements for the general fund, it's also in good financial position. As you can see, its fund balance was $4,353,288, an increase of a little over $1 million, not quite $1 million from the previous year. Of course, the capital projects fund decreased. Of course, that's normal. You issue the bonds 1 year for the project, then you spend the money later. So each year it'll decrease as you spend those monies. And you can see the total governmental fund balance, of course, decreased, but that was all due to the capital projects fund, as your general fund, as I said before, actually increased. The other part of that next page shows that in the notes, it references the notes that all your deposits and investments comply with the Public Funds Investment Act. Then it gives you the reference for the notes that all the payments were made in accordance with their debt service agreements. And last year, y'all paid off a bunch of those small loans to the bank with about $400,000, which is great. We appreciate that. Star appreciates that from the accounting standpoint. We appreciate that from the auditing standpoint. But that was a good move. Note L, if you want more, there's a 5-page disclosure on GASB 68 on the retirement system. And then on Note M, page 43, there's another 5-page note disclosure on the GASB 75 OPEB disclosure. That's that Supplemental Death Benefits Fund. And then if you really want more information about those, you can always go to the website we did, and you'll see that they have a booklet for your city for both those, the GASB 68 and the GASB 75. And those have a lot of interesting data and reading, but we condense that, we're required to condense that to about 5 pages in y'all's financial statements. And that's why we put, of course, Note R, the negative unrestricted net position, as you well know, the city always issues the debt here secured by taxes. And they might use, most of the money is used for utility, water and sewer improvements. Therefore, the governmental always shows the negative unrestricted position. The assets are put on the utility fund, so the utility fund looks a lot better, but that's just the nature of the debt. And then, of course, the last note was the prior period adjustment one again for the GASB 75. Exhibit G1, that's always an important exhibit. The general fund comparison to the budget, and in both cases for the revenues and expenditures, you were positive variance. In fact, the bottom line, you had about $1.5 million positive variance to the budget, which is great. Then we have to disclose in those other two exhibits, once again, you can see GASB 68, the district or the city's share is $261,179. The liability, and that's funded at 97.41%, which is excellent. And the GASB 75, y'all's share is $189,330, but of course that's 0% funded. As I said, that's just a pay-as-you-go method, and that's how they set it up. It's just recognizing that long-term liability on your financial statements. And then as far as recommendations, we found no major weaknesses in internal control or no instances of non-compliance, but we have those listed there, what our recommendations are for improving the records, and those have to do with, on the bank reconciliation, there were several old outstanding checks, and they weren't of a material amount, so we just recommend that it be researched and cleared. The investment policy, under the Public Funds Investment Act, the City Council should each year on an annual basis review and approve that policy. The payroll benefit deductions, there was some accruals being made, and we've talked to the payroll person that the city's portion of some of those benefits, i.e. insurance and stuff, weren't being cleared properly, and we've explained to her how to get those cleared out so we don't have those accounts stay in balance. Okay. Utility inventory, the amount of the utility inventory wasn't updated for the actual inventory. We just recommend that each year a utility inventory is taken and the numbers in the general ledger be updated for that actual balance. The city received some contributed assets. This was in regards to the, hang on a second, just a minute. $634,861 was conveyed to the city from the Paseo de Vaca.
Paseo de Vaca.
Paseo, okay, thank you. Anyway, the point here is that we had to book that adjustment, that information from the Public Works should be given to the accounting department, and therefore they can go ahead and book that asset. Whenever you get something conveyed from a private entity to the city, that asset has to be recorded on the books. We've done that. We're just saying in the future, we'd like to see that department get those documents over to Star so she can book them. The same way under the grant documents. There's a few of those with the Metcalf Metro. And once again, those documents didn't get over to Star, so we had to make some corrections and book those grant numbers. And then finally, the others have to do with the sale of the Highland Lakes Golf Course. And then the employee expense reimbursements and related part policy, those are just some items that need to be updated on your policies and procedures. And the other thing I need to point out on the financial statements, if you go on my summary page, after the governmental on the enterprise fund, I did detail those. And it's the second last page, so therefore you can see that the utility fund, last year, the operating income was increased, made operating income of $2,826,113. That was $731,687 increase over the prior year. And the net change in position, of course, was $1,949,386, was also $273,000 change from the prior year. And then on the next page is the golf course fund, showing the operating loss for last year was $519,213, which was actually an increase of about $437,000 over the prior year. And then it shows the final net change in position because of the transfer into the golf course fund. It actually showed a net change of $233,131. These just give you some comparison numbers moving forward. But anyway, like I said, overall, it was a good operating year for the city. In total, the city's assets increased, and the net position increased by over 2.7 million. And if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. Or if there's something else you want to cover in detail, I'd be happy to go over it. Hello, Frank. How you doing? Can you see me? But anyway, we always appreciate the cooperation of the city, especially Josh and Star and all the rest of the staff that we bugged for several days. They are very helpful and do a good job. And we always appreciate their cooperation. Mm-hmm. And like I say, it helps to have people who care and want to do things right.
Questions, comments?
Yeah, you show the golf course, and I was gonna ask you this before. Is there anything in there, a library or airport or any of that factors into this?
Into the golf course?
No, you have a separate item breakout for the golf.
Golf course, yeah, but that's because under the governmental, the library and those type items, they're all rolled up into the governmental section of the general fund.
Golf course has its own fund.
Yeah, under governmental accounting, anytime you have a fund that is supposed to be based on user charges.
You have to have separate.
Right, like golf course, and that's why the utility fund, the water and sewer fund is a separate fund, is an enterprise fund. And then you have all your other items like the police department, the library, municipal court, developments, the airport, development services, they're all into the general fund.
So I've understood or heard a couple times that we need to establish an aviation fund or an airport fund when taking federal dollars.
Right. That's usually a requirement of the grants.
So we've taken a bunch of grants over the last 10 to 20 years, but we still don't have an aviation department.
Well, but when the grant monies come in, we account for those through that type of fund. Normally, you set up an aviation fund once you start getting regular income, i.e. from hangar rental, or if you sell gas, there's different entities that run airports in the governmental world, like cities and counties. If you have some kind of normal operation where you're generating some type of income each year, that's usually when they set up a separate airport fund.
So we just started selling fuel last fall, and it looks like it might make about $24,000 this year.
Yeah, that should be accounted for in a separate fund.
So that's on Star, I guess, to set that up.
We would probably do it as part of the next budget cycle. We would not probably do it in a year.
No, we'd have to set the fund up now when the operations start.
Operations started in 1st of December.
Yeah, they should be set up in a separate, accounted for in a separate fund.
It is in its own budget and the accounting numbers, we just don't have it as a fund set aside like we do in park, golf, general, all that.
Well, I recommend to set up a separate fund. Pull it out of the general fund and keep accounting for it separately.
Would that require an ordinance to set up that fund?
But
No, that's just an accounting.
That's just, it's mainly accounting, but I guess if you had a separate ordinance, I don't know,
will we do a budget amendment to show that came?
transferred.
There to the new separate
Since
fund?
the numbers are already there for the general fund, we would have to show it, once we set it up and then go as its own fund, it's gonna automatically create it. All the accounting will show it as a fund as opposed to just to a department. But I don't know that we have to have a budget amendment necessarily, since it's not gonna change the revenue or the expenses out of one.
Be included in our reconciliation at the end of the year, maybe, just to show where all those monies shouldn't change.
Well, and we've talked about creating up an enterprise fund for the airport. So now that we're at this point, we'll set it up, we'll figure it out, we'll bring it back to council. And the good thing is we track all those expenditures now. We track all the revenues, so we have the numbers is what Star's saying. So we'll figure out what we need to do to set it up and bring it back and get it reviewed.
Okay.
Yeah, because practical matter is, what a lot of them do is they set it up as a special revenue fund, because a lot of times the numbers, you're kind of shooting in the dark with the budgeting. The local government code, special revenue fund doesn't really have to be budgeted. It can be. It depends on the city or the county, whoever's running it. And so that's why a lot of them pull it out and put it in a special revenue fund. That way, the budgeting for the general fund stays steady and true.
Okay.
At least that's what I've seen in practice over the years.
That's for TxDOT aviation grant assurances. We're not allowed
Right.
to put that money in the general fund. and
Right,
buy
that's
comp cards with
why
it.
it's better to keep it as a separate fund.
Got it.
It helps it control the accounting, separates the accounting.
Okay.
But yes, they have got TxDOT grants in the past, and those improvements have been recorded and were put on the depreciation schedule.
Got it. All right. Any more questions? All right, sir.
All right, thank y'all.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
This is an action item.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion.
Stand by.
Do we have,
I'm sorry. I did have somebody sign up, so
okay.
I'm sorry. Number 6, Ron Smith.
Okay, Ron Smith, 20609 Oak Ridge. I believe I know the answer to this, but I'll ask the auditor. The management reserve number that's reported monthly, the majority of that money comes from water, is that correct? Majority of it. How does the money, where does the money come from to go to reserve?
Well, the bulk of it would be the utility fund.
Okay.
Utility fund makes the money.
Right.
Right, because it's,
So my comment to the council is, your management reserve, the majority of that money comes from your utility bills, which come from the citizens who pay the utility bills. It's not necessarily free money that's sitting out there. And every time you choose to go to the management reserve to buy whatever, understand you're tapping the citizens' water bill for it. That's why I made the statement years ago, water pays for water and golf pays for golf, is because what we have now is we have excess, I guess, in certain months that gets moved over to the management reserve, and the management reserve builds up over time. It's not a slush fund to be just used anywhere. It's really for an emergency fund. And I have no audit in front of me. The last one I saw was a year ago. I have no financial statements. I haven't seen one of those in a half a year. But one thing I do want to emphasize, and it really comes off of Ed's pitch that folds into, I guess, the money. Ed made the statement in his State of the City presentation that our utility revenues are up 31%, is on the slide. And we had increased income of $1.8 million. Now, as a citizen sitting in the audience looking at this thing, I'm left with the impression I'm overtaxed on my water bill. That's the impression I'm left with. I don't know that that's true, because I know you got a $6 million bond sitting out there that I believe we may be just starting to make payments on right now. And that money would be used for that. But if you only tell the revenue side of the equation and not show the offsetting expenditures, then the perception is we're flush with cash, and maybe we are, but I don't think that's true. And so my concern is that the citizens may walk away here because they're already worried about high water bills. And if you get a management reserve that's building up, and if they hear $1.8 million excess revenues, and they hear utility revenues are up 31%, then the conclusion is, I'm paying too much for my water. And I don't know if that's true, because I think you got offsetting cost for that, but that's not mentioned anywhere. So I just want to make sure that the citizens who may be listening at home, I don't know that that's really true. And I think we do need a rate study, because when that rates were set back in 2015, we were still in a drought and we hadn't had the growth hit. And we figured for a midpoint on CIPs in the future. Now that's all that dynamics has probably changed now, and you probably need to re-baseline in the future. So I would make sure that you do the rate study.
It's ongoing.
It's ongoing? Okay, because I know you got a bigger base, and I know you got rates, and I know you got cost.
We are currently actively doing the study.
Oh, you are?
Yes.
May I ask who you're doing it with? Is it
Melissa?
Melissa?
Same person.
Kurt Hayden? Okay. She's good, by the way. Okay, and then also I heard a statement that the golf course budget was down 10% in the presentation. Is that revenue or expense or net?
Net.
Okay.
That was the, the losses. So he had a budget of, the projected loss was 555, 130. He came in at 495, something like that.
I look at the net.
The loss.
I look at the net. I don't really care about the pluses and minuses that go on within a golf course. I just look at the bottom line. Last year was what, we've been running about $500,000 on the course.
And this year we projected losses at 450 and.
Right. Okay. All right, that's all I have. Thanks.
Mayor, there are 2 points that I want to make back to Mr. Smith's comment. The first thing is the monthly financials are on the website every month. And so if you want them, even though they don't go in the agenda packet, they're posted on the website. Everybody can access the website at all times. The most recent, I believe, went on today.
Right.
There you go. It's on last week. So those are there. So that's not an issue. And then back to the question to Keith, the general fund is not funded by utility revenues. The general fund balance, as reported by the auditor, who's sitting here now, is at $4.3 million. Those funds are general fund dollars, not utility funded dollars. So there's no way to debate utility fund funding the general fund balance. If we have a utility fund balance, we have a general fund balance. General fund, as we've seen in the presentation, is based on ad valorem taxes. So if anything, I don't want citizens to look back and say, my water bill's killing me. If anything, at least say my water bill and my property taxes are killing me, because general fund is not utility bill revenue. It just doesn't happen.
I never mentioned the word general fund. I said management reserve, which sits, I believe, on the balance sheet. Maybe it sits on the operating statement as its own account, but I'm not talking general fund. Did you set up, because I know you were talking about it one time, setting up a reserve fund on the utility side and setting up a reserve fund on the general side. Has that happened yet?
Yes, sir. We're in that process, and we have that through the audit.
Okay, and are you going to move money from the management reserve to those two accounts? And basically transfer, if you will, the funds from the reserves to the reserves in the departments?
What you'll have is you'll have general fund operating, you'll have general fund balance. You have utility fund operating, utility fund balance.
They don't switch over between.
But, I mean, I know what you're saying. I'm just saying you'll have a definite line between both the funds so that we know one goes one way, one goes the other.
Well, a year ago, we didn't have accounts on the utility or the general side. We just had one big management reserve bucket is all we had. Yeah. Now you have two of them, I believe, or you're in the process of having two of them, and you got to seed those accounts from somewhere, probably going to come from management reserves when you do it. I don't know. But if the management reserve is climbing right now, then the inference to me is then the water bills are generating plenty of revenue right now, enough that it can feed that account. I thought we were going to take the excess from the water and move it over to the utility account. That's what I thought we were going to do. I thought that's how that money was going to be moving from going forward in time.
It would do that. It just, the audit makes it very clear. It doesn't matter how we operate internally. The audit makes it clear of where those dollars come from and where they go, and then what the balances are in each fund. That's the only point that I hope people take back from seeing an annual audit report that clearly delineates between fund dollars in each fund. So,
just a question for Star. What is the current management reserve amount right now, about, to the nearest million?
End of January is about 4.6 million.
4.6?
But it's a combination of several things. We sold the golf course, we've had lots of things, so there's a lot.
Oh, you parked it there. That's where you parked to sell the golf course until you figure out what to do with it?
Right.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Okay.
What is the term? What is this? I'm not familiar with the term management reserve. I mean, there's fund balances.
I'm not familiar with management reserve either. What I'm saying is the audit clearly states
we delineate by funds.
operating fund balance, operating fund balance. And that's what we need to focus on. And the Mayor, that's my point. As a community, we need to know that's why we do an audit annually. It doesn't matter if we call it the Ricky Davis Fund.
That's right.
The audit's not going to call it the Ricky Davis Fund. They're going to call it the general fund balance, which is created by these revenues, and it has these expenditures. And that's why the beauty is going to be about that airport fund. It'll have these revenues, these expenditures. And if it doesn't have more revenues than expenditures, it'll show a transfer in from the general fund to support it. And if it makes money, those dollars will go into the airport fund balance. And that's just the way we've got to clarify how we're operating. And it just gets confusing if we talk different languages, and not many of us up here probably speak multiple languages because they're hard. And that makes it tricky. The confusion is difficult.
Yeah, but in the accounting, governmental accounting and auditing world, everything is set up by fund. What he's saying is exactly true. You don't have something called management reserve. You have fund balances by fund.
Right.
And whatever else you want to call them, that's what it is. It's a fund balance by fund. So she keeps everything by fund, and those funds are strictly accounted for.
And Ron, maybe the confusion is when Josh came on board, he separated it out in the budget process. That we were doing general fund, utility fund, and they're two separate things, you know?
You know, that started in October.
Yeah, so So, you know, so there's not money shifting from utility funds over to general funds to take care of a golf course. Yeah. Okay.
All right. That is all I have signed up to speak, so. if
Are we
There's no
ready for
other
a motion?
questions, now I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we approve resolution number 19-1790.
I second it.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. Hearing none, the motion carries unanimous. I notice Frank now has a sign that he holds up. Yes.
They make those where he's at. That's what they do.
Very entertaining when we're all on a computer screen, right?
So, number 8. Discussion and possible action on ordinance number, thank you, sir.
You bet, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Discussion and possible action on ordinance number 19-02-21-02. An ordinance of the city of Lago Vista, Texas, to adopt the Technical Construction Standard Specifications Manual, known as the TCSS Manual of the city of Lago Vista, Texas, first edition, dated February 2019, providing an effective date, repealer, severability, proper notice, and open meetings clause. And number 8, who is this?
It's Mr. Belay, sir.
EB.
Mr. Belay.
BB.
None of the rest of us wanted to take on this presentation of 8,000 pages.
It's only 500 pages, come on now. Mayor and council, good evening. So this is the second time you guys are seeing this. First time it was introduced at the last meeting. So as noted before, we are currently using the City of Austin Technical Construction Standard Specifications. Every project basically has a spec book. And I brought a couple of examples for you guys. Back in, when was this? 1993. So Tim Haney and Associates designed a lift station, and this was the spec book they created. So same lift station, 2007. This was the spec book they created, just to give you guys an idea. And the same thing for the Safe Routes to School project is about this big. There was some of the concerns at the last meeting. Well, this is really big. That's actually not. It's pretty standard. It is comprehensive. It will help us with our roadway projects that we're moving forward. The first project we're going to, if council moves forward and approves is the first project we're going to try it on is going to be the Boggy Ford project. We're going to get started on that, the roadway rehab. So the only thing, if council does pass this, the only thing that this will impact is going to be public works project, unless in the future council decides to amend and approve the subdivision regulations to make this standard for all subdivision requirements, then this would be applicable to those. But currently, if approved tonight, this is just a filler that we need right now to move forward on our projects instead of trying to attempt to use City of Austin specs. So even the park project engineer has been calling us, finding out if it got approved, because if it didn't get approved, then they have to come up with their own, which is going to cost us money.
Okay.
So, any questions for me? I know this is just a behemoth of a manual and has a lot of foreign languages in there. I only speak 2, but.
Mr. Mayor, the one thing I'm saying, this is a guide for the commercial part. If you needed to make changes, you can make changes to this at any time, correct? It's not going to have to come back to council each time you make a change.
Every time we make a change to this document, we'll have to come back to council unless council decides to authorize the city staff to make the changes. But the way it's presented is if the future changes are made, we'll have to come back to council.
Eric, I have a question that
Yes,
was
sir.
given to me to pose to you. someone looked at the manual online and wanted to know where to find the information that has to do with the location of mailboxes relative to the edge of the roadway.
That we don't regulate that. There is the federal government, the post office. Usually the mailbox is 6 to 8 inches and 42 inches.
Thank you.
We do have a standard mailbox there, as if the city does install a mailbox, there is a standard mailbox, which is nothing very pretty.
All right, if nobody on council has any more questions, I do have Ron Smith would like to address.
Okay, hate to be up here again. Ron Smith, 20609 Oak Ridge. This is a test for the council, reading the document. There is a major difference between the document he showed last time and the document he showed this time. You know what it was? There's no page numbers in his document.
I'm sorry,
Even
say
though
that
he has no page numbers in the current document.
Oh.
There are page numbers in the old document, so something changed between last time and this time, and now there's no pages on the document. I'm not talking about your e-page number on your tablet. I'm talking about the actual document that will reside on a shelf somewhere. Those, at least the one I'm seeing today, does not have page numbers. I realize that's an easy fix. Probably takes 5 minutes to go fix it and reprint it. But I'm just saying that when I went looking for certain page numbers, I couldn't find information. So I realize it's a nit, but I'd like to see you get that put in your motion before you approve
Was
it.
that on both of them, the written one and the one with the pictures, or just the one with the?
Yeah.
Well, I was looking at section 600 primarily, which is the water section. So I don't know, is that the larger of the two?
Yes.
Okay, that's the one I saw specifically. I went to section 600. I looked at page 4 on 600, and I looked at the bottom, and there's no page number. And that's throughout the entire document. So if you want to find something quickly, I don't think you want to count the pages, in the document. So maybe you might put the page numbers on there before you approve it. Thanks.
Unfortunate. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, can we ask Eric if anything changed besides that?
And how did that change happen?
Council, nothing changed. If something did change, it's probably a computer error, or nothing has actually changed, not a letter, not a word that I'm aware of.
The document you have in your hand, does it have page numbers?
Yes, so that's why I was a little confused on what you were referring to.
Electronically, it does not have pages.
Well, electronically, we see pages and numbers, but we wouldn't have known that there isn't a page number.
Okay.
On the document, not the e-page document.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and
Perhaps.
I'm not going to say this is true, but I know like on my slide presentation and stuff, when I click that box page number, on the electronic version, it doesn't show a page number, but when I print it out, it does show the page number. So I don't know if that's the difference or not, but
Okay.
Software glitch.
it's just a box that it's hidden on your slide, but electronically, but when it's printed, it's there.
That's all I can see.
Okay, thanks. We'll look into it.
All right. So, if there's no other questions, comments, it is open for possible action.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we accept ordinance number 19-2-21-02.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. Hearing none, motion carries unanimous. Number 9, discussion and possible action regarding recommendation of contract award for the construction of Water Plant 1 metal building installation project.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. This item, as the Mayor mentioned, this is for metal building cover at the water treatment plant.
5, 6.
So this is the last piece of a puzzle of a project that apparently has been going on for a few years, unfortunately, and we are just trying to wrap everything up and finish it up. There were previous phases to the water plant, which was rehab, the installed filters and whatnot. It's in fairly good shape. So some of the last pieces is fixing fencing and some miscellaneous yard work. Amongst the bigger item is this building cover. So this building cover will go over 2 water clarifiers and will help us with any possible we call phosphorus or algae growing inside the water. So that's been planned for many years. Unfortunately, throughout this whole process, originally the project was fully funded. Something happened along the way. The scope of work got reduced. The funding got moved around. So there's a gap in there that we are trying to fill. So the building, the gap is $55,000. And we've been discussing with the city manager and finance director, and we identified that possibly, if council is willing, to transfer $55,000 from any interest accrued on the bank accounts to this project to cover up the gap. And the building cover itself, we got 3 bids on. The lowest bid was from Gophers Construction. And we have Ira Wiseman here, who is a general contractor, if you guys have any questions for him. And his low bid was $73,975.23. The other 2 bids were about $10,000 to $15,000 higher. The project, this building plus the other miscellaneous work that we still have to finish up, which total another $33,000 roughly. Will last for about 2 months before everything is complete. We are trying to wrap up all these old projects that have been going on for quite some time that it seems like there's no end to it.
Okay.
Any questions for me? And we have the general contractor here if you guys have any questions on how this is done or.
So the total is about 107,000?
Yes, correct. So we have about half of it right now.
Yeah, 52.
Half of it left.
And what we're asking for is money that is interest on our current CIP deposits.
Right, we looked at the option that is correct. We looked at the option of transferring it between other CIP projects that have come under budget. But the way the bond was worded is we couldn't do that. We couldn't transfer it to this CIP project, unfortunately. And we have money sitting there and just not doing anything.
That was my question.
Yes.
Is the interest is it not earmarked like the actual bond?
I don't believe so. Maybe it's a question Star can answer on that one.
No, sir. So those interest dollars do not have to stick with those projects based on there.
And what is our balance on the interest right now?
The bond interest does have to stay with the project.
To which project?
The project is tied to. We have each project has its own name and it has a sister interest account. And the interest stays with that particular project. The interest that we had talked about using for what is needed is coming from other non-restricted accounts.
But it's under the CIP?
The interest itself? No.
Because this says CIP interest.
Some of it would be some CIP interest money perhaps, but it wouldn't be any money that's already restricted to another project.
So those are interests, from what I understand, is interest accrued from CIP projects that are not restricted, mostly.
When I'm reading this, it says a metal covered building over 2 existing water plant clarifies.
Clarifiers, my apologies.
Clarifiers, okay. Which is what?
Clarifiers are big concrete cylindrical in shape tanks sitting on the ground, about half the size of this building. So that basically, that clarifies the water. The water comes in pretty muddy, and all the suspended solids, basically just the way the physics work, all the suspended solid has a way of pushing everything to the bottom, and clean water comes up to the top.
So we're covering concrete structures with steel.
We have concrete structures, we're putting a metal building on top of them to reduce ultraviolet light, which helps algae growth. Sorry, I don't mean to get too technical on this.
No, it makes perfect sense.
Are these new clarifiers or is these the existing ones?
Existing rehab clarifiers.
Okay, because didn't it at one point have a metal building over it?
It had a partial metal building which was not functioning. Yes,
That's right. You could walk down the middle, but the clarifier was off to the side.
That is
outside.
correct.
That's right. Yeah.
So that's been taken down and you put up a new
yes, sir.
one over.
And by not having to deal with the algae in the long term, that's going to save us money.
It's going to make our water cleaner. APA and TCQ are coming up with new regulations that, without us doing this, would have a difficult time complying with them.
Okay.
Does it help with odors or anything like that?
Well, anything that removes algae helps with odors.
Okay. But it will be enclosed in a metal building, so.
That is correct.
You know, inside that metal building,
You don't have birds flying around.
Right.
You don't have anything. So, yeah.
so that should help too.
So the building will be a complete enclosure?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Not to the ground. There'll be a complete enclosure to the side of the what helps with the enclosure that you have now. Hi, Ira Weisman, 7306 Cowpoke Trail. What helps with the enclosure now is that you have the metal structure. Inside that, you have insulation, and on the outside of that, an additional metal encapsule, I guess is what you would call it. So that's going to keep the condensation down, so the metal building isn't going to condensate, come down, add any additional issues. The sides will come down just past the edge of the top of the tanks, so you're not going to get a lot of creatures coming in there. No rain, no sunlight, which is the biggest point.
No contaminants?
To the best of our ability, yeah, contaminants. I can't answer to that, but it will keep the sunlight out. It will keep the weather out, which is the biggest issue with. If you think about it like your pool, you know, you have an encapsulated sand filter or a salt filter, and keeping the UV out of that is what helps it continue to keep everything clean. When it comes into your pool, then it's open to the sun. You get black marks, you get brown marks, you get all of that on your tile or granite or whatever you have around your pool. That's what they're trying to get away from.
Got it.
Except you don't drink the pool water.
Except you don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
I've been known to.
Hopefully he has the colored stuff in it.
I'm still unclear on the funding though. It says indicate funding source 2017 bond package. So that 55,000, how do we know that it's not being, anyway, 55,000 interest, how do I know this interest is not coming off of projects that the interest is set for that project fund?
Because
I mean,
you
do we
trust
have-
me?
Do what?
Because you trust me? Any project that is either funded by an investor or by bond money, the way we have set things that was set up years ago is that there's the main bank account project for it at Logic, and then there's going to be an interest account so that we can keep up with how much was the interest as opposed to just the bond itself or the investor's money. The interest account always ties to the main account. So as long as that particular CIP project is active, it's restricted to that project. With the 2017 bonds, y'all further as council and said that interest and everything coming in through that bond was tied to those 13 projects only or went back to debt service. So that's what those projects are going to do. They're going to be tied to their original project, to one of the 13 in the project, or it'll go back to debt service. It can't come out of there. But these other monies, when Eric and I had talked, he was under the impression he could take some of the 2017 bond money, which he couldn't. So I told him that even just like the interest account on the reserve account right now is at $34,000. That would take care of a lot of this project here. But there are other interest accounts out there that have some money that's not tied or restricted to them, and we could use those. We're earning between $7 and $8 million a month right now, interest money on the reserve account. So if we use just the reserve account interest, we could totally fund the project.
What do we earn in a month on interest accounts? 7,000 to 8,000 a month?
On that one account,
7,000 to 8,000?
on the reserve account,
Yeah.
yes.
She said million.
Right. So it's 7,000 to
Oh, that's a
8,000.
million?
Yeah, you
Oh,
said million.
no.
We're rolling.
We trust you.
Okay, yeah, there you go. Not quite that good, but no, just with that account. And that's what I had in mind when I started talking to Eric last week, but it was kind of last minute.
Okay, so where it says funding source, that is incorrect.
That would be,
The
if that's what it
55
says as the bond is incorrect, correct.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
All right.
Perhaps mayor and council can change the wording on this to where it's from reserve interest instead of,
Or non-restricted.
Non-restricted interest
Non-restricted.
account.
No restricted interest.
Okay. Gotcha. Where are we now?
All right, well, do I have any more? Let me see if I have anybody signed up. What number are we on? 9? 9. Okay, no, I do not have anybody signed up to speak on this one, so unless y'all have any other comments, questions, I'm open for action.
Mayor, I make a recommendation that we award the contract to Gophers LLC with the modification that the money come from unencumbered interest from previous CIP projects.
Or from.
Okay.
Unrestricted.
Not CIP.
Or
Non-restricted.
non-restricted interest.
Interest.
All right. Make sure we use the right
All right,
words.
so I have a motion to award contract to Gophers LLC with a bid of $73,975.23. Additional future obligations, $33,245. And to make up the additional $55,000 out of the non-restricted funds.
And
That's the motion.
I'll second it.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. Hearing none, motion carries unanimous. 10, discussion and possible action regarding recommendation of the 2019 swimming pool management services agreement with the YMCA of Greater Williamson County and authorize the city manager to execute the proposed agreement and terminate the existing agreement.
I think this is a great agreement.
Who's the existing agreement with?
Mayor, this item, you ready to start this item? And I'll answer all that inside of the, as Eric brings some other information up. This item is coming before council based on operations at our Lago Vista swimming pool. The current provider, as listed on the staff summary, is Lifeguards for Hire. So they operate, they operate the swimming pool and the lifeguard operations at the swimming facility during the months that we're open, which is typically Memorial Day to Labor Day. What happened in the process here is city staff decided to advertise out to see operators. There were some concerns expressed from previous seasons about the way the operations were handled. So city staff put out the advertisement, the request for some proposals. One of the proposals that came in was from the YMCA. YMCA, or as listed also in your staff summary as the Y, was excited to come out, talk about the facility, talk about the opportunities, talk about things that they could do maybe more efficiently and effectively, and then provide the proposal. There was a proposal included in your agenda packet. This is an updated proposal, and then Eric can talk a little bit more about where we're at and what we're doing.
Mayor and council, the only thing that has changed from this proposal to the one that you have in front of you is on, I should have marked it, a certain page. So page 5, it's on page 5. So basically the YMCA has, this is on liability and insurance requirements. The Y has a standard $4 million policy, which is pretty substantial. Our attorney had asked perhaps the Y could consider $5 million. And in discussion with the city manager, we discussed with the Y that the $4 million may be sufficient if the council's okay with that. And this is the only change from what you have in front of you.
So we're going from 5 to 4. To 4.
$4 million, so it's $4 million aggregate policy instead of $5 million. And just as a comparison, typically on construction projects, we ask for a $2 million aggregate insurance from the contractors, although this one does involve the public a little bit more than a contractor or construction would.
Mayor, the item before you is to bring in the YMCA to operate the swimming pool, and that could be a singular focused topic, but potentially it has the ability to provide so much more for our community. The focus for the staff at this point is to say you have lifeguards, you provide expanded services, but what our hopes and desires are is to grow the program. And by the program, I mean part of what you talked about in your presentation is to grow Parks and Recreation program and the potential partnership to work with the Y, to build something regional and to allow us more opportunities for people of all ages, not just swim lessons, but there's some things down the road that could be excellent partnership opportunities. Todd Griego, he's sitting with a Y on his shirt. The only person here in the place with a Y is here tonight. So if you had specific questions of what they're thinking or of the Y, I believe he'll answer those. Maybe he won't answer them, but you can at least ask him. And then from our side, both Eric and I can talk about it. The fun thing is, I think they visited 3 or 4 times to look at our operations specifically and ask the questions. And so for us, it just seems that it provides something new for our community.
So cost 51.6. When's it open? Memorial Day to Labor Day?
To Labor Day.
Yes, sir. Memorial Day to Labor Day.
Okay.
And Mr. Mayor, I spent a lot of time with the YMCA, especially in Houston. I was on the board of the YMCA for the Northeast YMCA. I had to attend all the YMCA meetings, dinners, morning prayers, everything else. And I participated in their swimming pool, and I saw them upgrade their swimming pool. The program that they offer for swimming pools is top-notch, okay? There's nothing bad that I can ever say about the YMCA. When I came here to Austin full-time, I went to the YMCA on 183 and spent time over there all the time working out because I had my YMCA membership from Houston. So, I'm definitely in support of the YMCA running a pool. The people are very knowledgeable as far as lifeguards and medical protection of swimmers that would come in. They're well trained on that. I see the YMCA is offering 100 days of pool usage versus the 92 days. And they're less money than the lifeguards for hire. So,
I have very fond memories of the Y with, at the time, Princesses and Guides program. So I'm not familiar at all with the pool. Are we big enough to have a swim team, an inter-club, inter-city tournament, or?
Mayor, we have a swim team now, and last year they kind of revitalized their program, and they've been out there last year. So we do have that activity. We didn't have maybe 2 parties last year, which seems like it's one of those untapped areas, as well as we didn't offer swim lessons last year. What we did, we sent them over to their pools in Cedar Park, Round Rock, and Marble Falls. We said, hey, we're not going to do it, but these guys do it, so go see them. And so that was one of those catalysts that spurred us this year to say, bring them back into the mix.
And I haven't been there, but we have a concession stand.
We have a concession stand area that is unrefined, and that potentially the Y has a fantastic plan for what they want to do this year. Their goal is to bring in ice cream so that when you go by there and go for your swim, they're going to have, I think it's Bluebell ice cream. I think so they said.
Do we have a structure? We're gonna have to put in a structure?
We won't have to do, we have a caged area that'll allow them to store their apparatus behind that cage so they can lock it and then they open it for access. So the design's a little interesting, but the structure's there to protect the things and the investments.
I too was a Y Indian guide.
Yeah, Princess. Chief Big Dog Hunts.
Who here did not grow up with the YMCA?
That's the question.
Yeah.
You don't have a Y?
Oh. Don and Arts, that was your answer.
Didn't have a Y.
you didn't have a Y?
Now you too can have a Y.
Yes.
If you want it.
He can gain the Y experience.
Is the pool still gonna be $2? I haven't been able to find that in here.
Honestly, I don't know right offhand. I thought entrance
Oh,
was.
it's $5.
No, daily, we still have seasonal passes. I thought it was $3 for daily entrance, but let me look, flip through again, because I don't know right offhand. I thought it was 3, but I could be completely incorrect.
This does not address the fees.
Yeah, it says they'll use a cash register.
Let's see, we get part of that, but or part of the concessions.
Mayor, yeah, we'll have basically a cost share on concessions, a cost share on parties, and then there's a set fee schedule, and we'll advertise that just the same as they will, and they'll actively get into the schools, just similar to what we had before, to get the word out. But I apologize, I do not know the daily fee to be correct.
But we're not changing the daily fee.
Not at this time. We're not doing anything with that.
Any other questions?
Mr. Mayor, we have a wonderful pool. It is totally underutilized. I've been out there when there's only been 2 or 3 people in it. And I think this is an opportunity to put it into use.
That was December and they weren't supposed to be. That's
right. It's against the law.
Actually, it was February, but anyway, I heartily recommend and ask for a motion to approve authorization for the city manager to execute this proposed agreement and to terminate the existing agreement.
All right, I have a motion. Is there a
I'll second it.
I have a second from Arch. Question. Terminating the existing agreement. So it's an existing agreement. Is there a cost associated with terminating?
Mayor, there's not. It's a 30-day out clause, which just says we'll let them know what we're going to be doing. We have a good relationship with these guys, Mayor. We actually met with them last week and talked to them about what we had on the table. And I let them know today that if council takes an action on this, then we'll follow up with them. So I'll be talking to them tomorrow, one way or the other, no matter which way you vote.
And the fees are on the website, so you must be setting these fees by ordinance somehow.
Yeah, okay.
So they would be
Okay.
required to charge what you,
So you see a fee, a daily fee?
yeah.
Is it $3?
$250 for resident, $350 for non-resident.
Thank you.
But we can bring that back later on, right? An ordinance that specifies.
Yeah, we're not
Yeah.
addressing that now.
You if you have it on your website, you probably do have an underlying ordinance.
An ordinance
like
already.
Golf fees and,
This is part of the fee schedule.
Fee schedule.
We want
Yeah.
adopting the reception to the budget.
Okay, thank you.
does it say in the agreement that they have to charge our fees?
Mayor, I do not think so.
It says in the agreement that they were, I was looking at that a minute ago.
It says it will comply with city ordinances.
With the city ordinance.
Okay, so that's
Yeah.
we're covered.
That covers it, okay.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, so I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. Hearing none, motion carries unanimous. Number 11, discussion and possible action regarding the City of Lago Vista and Rusty Allen Airport Property Owners Association Funding Commitment Agreement. And who's got this one?
Mayor, I will take this one if you are good with that. I have handed out,
Recusing myself, right? So I'm gonna step down and send my affidavit to legal.
All right, thank you very much.
To Sandra.
I have handed out a document, and I would like to counsel and anyone else that wants a copy of this document to look at the document I handed out for the funding commitment agreement for the Rusty Allen Airport between the City of Lago Vista, Texas, and Rusty Allen Property Owners Association. The document I handed you has a staple in the top left corner, and then below it, it has a separate attachment, which is the Rusty Allen Lago Vista Airport Business Land Use Information Form. And that was handed out right below that document, so it would be detached. Everyone in the City of Lago Vista, are very excited to have this document to present to council. We have worked through some questions. We used the POA-approved document. We used the city-approved document. We used the last 17 meetings where we've discussed it, and we come up with a version that I believe has every item, every sentence has been discussed and agreed upon in some sense. As of today, with this latest version, I think there's only one item in terms of the wording that we have any type of disagreement on. And I'm going to reference my comments back when I'm saying we now. I'm discussing James Peck and myself in dialogue that we've had from last week to this week. Mm-hmm. So there's one area, and I'm just going to point this area out in terms of wording. And then, Mayor, if you want, Mr. Peck, he's sitting right there, as always. Well, usually he's sitting there, but now he's sitting there. Mm-hmm. Article 3, Section 1, Paragraph 3, that's page 4 of 7. There's a section that says, city acknowledges there may be commercial leases of RAPOA member properties and requests commercial tenants enter into individual through the fence agreements with the city. Individual RAPOA members agree to inform tenants of a TTF agreement requirement by city and will not be held responsible for the administration of nor for compliance by tenants. I say that there's a question on that one. The POA agreement basically ended that paragraph after the word tenants on the second line, and then the city version goes through others. Actually, the word property on the first line. They finish it on property. And so we've added that second paragraph there. If you recall before, the POA version had a compliance letter statement from the FAA clarifying the 2012 Reform Act. And the POA version included that reference there. The city version, we took that out and put this section in. The other change that's a major change is the dollar figure that you will see, which would be the access fee or the funding commitment from the POA to the city, which is in section,
Article 2, Section 3.
thank you, sir, and that's called the annual maintenance fee. And in this document, it is listed as $23,400 annually. And then in another section, it allows for the CPI indicator to be used as a method to increase that fee over the term of the agreement. So, Mayor, everything else in this document has been agreed upon, reviewed. Mr. Peck is holding the exact same document you are holding.
Okay.
And it's been reviewed to that point. I do know that Councilor Robbins, maybe for other items, cared to be here, but he was definitely here for this item, so I think that's why he's hung out with us. So if we need him, we can zoom in a little bit on the microphone.
But everybody's in agreement on this document then, as far as between the airport and the city.
I agree with that gentleman on this entire document minus potentially one sentence.
Okay.
I have a question. So on that Article 3, that paragraph, we ended it at property. Okay. City acknowledges there may be commercial leases. Okay, and we're wanting them to enter to the defense agreement. Okay. If it ends here, who is going to inform those commercial tenants that we require that? If we go with their version.
If you take this version out, Mayor, if you
who's gonna tell us that there's a commercial tenant?
How about I just say no one, Mayor? And there's, if I could ask Mr. Peck a question, I think he can answer that as well, because they're, part of the POA's comments are that they don't necessarily agree that the city should be able to have through the fence agreements with their tenant aircraft based on the letter. And so that's the point of contention. So they're saying, we're not going to tell the tenant, because based on that compliance letter, they don't believe that the tenant has to pay that. And that's the one area where I'm saying the city believes the tenant should do it. And so if you take that out, Mayor, no one's going to tell us we're not going to have through the fence agreements with tenant aircraft.
And is that, okay, sir, if you would come up, is that because of the deeded access that y'all have as property owners?
To a degree it is, Mayor. The reason that we leaned back into that feeling on this portion is because of the way the FAA spoke into it in the interest of trying to keep this agreement as simple and straightforward as possible. The purpose of this agreement in general is to appease all the grant assurance requirements, and the way that the FAA addressed it directly was just to say that the grant assurance, I can read if you'd like the whole paragraph. The FAA Modernization and Reform Act of 2012 was signed into law. Section 136 of this law states, a sponsor of a general aviation airport shall not be considered to be in violation of this subtitle or to be in violation of a grant assurance made under this section or any other provisions of the law as a condition for the receipt of federal financial assistance for airport development, solely because the sponsor enters into an agreement that grants a person who owns residential real property adjacent to the airport or near the airport access to the airfield for the following: A, aircraft of the person, and B, aircraft authorized by the person. So that's the FAA speaking directly into it to say that our aircraft and aircraft that we authorize that would be stored within our property are okay to go through and aren't going to violate a grant assurance. So it was our interest to protect general aviation that's sort of a dying breed out there anyway, and not try to create any additional barriers for ourselves or for any other people who may not have the ability to own a property to store an airplane, to be able to help us recoup some of our property taxes by storing their airplane in our place and not encumbering them any further. So we wanted to keep it as simple as possible. It's really an agreement between us and the city, and what we need to do to try to recoup some of our expenses for owning those buildings didn't need to be a party to this agreement.
So what kind of loss do we suffer?
Well, currently, Mayor, and there's 2 points here. The one point is currently we wouldn't really suffer any losses because we don't have any revenue stream coming from those people anyway. So if you talk about dollars, we have zero loss to the existing budget moving forward. What we would suffer is an opportunity cost. So the opportunity is if we're going back to our conversations, what we've brought from our discussion with TxDOT Aviation is we do not have a through the fence agreement with our POA. What we have is maintenance agreements. What we have. So our discussions with TxDOT says that clarification may be a stretch. Again, it's the word may be a stretch. It doesn't say what Mr. Peck's saying is wrong. It just says TxDOT Aviation may not agree with it. So I tell you, Mayor, direct answer, we're losing nothing now. We would only potentially lose new through the fence agreements with other tenant aircraft.
I was under the impression we submitted both programs to a third party, TxDOT or FAA?
Mayor, that is correct. We submitted both the previous city council approved agreement and the POA approved agreement and said, hey, can you give us some feedback? This to the TxDOT compliance officer. Give us some feedback. What do you think? And they came back and said, good job. Keep working on it. If your city legal has any concerns, let us know.
So they didn't include this sentence in there?
No, we talked about it, but I responded back and said, in writing, could you give us any concerns from either document? And the answer was, no, we will not give you anything in writing. When you both agree to something, submit it to us. Once again, new compliance officer, submit it to us, and if it has any issues, we'll let you know.
So whatever we agree to tonight, you're still gonna resubmit?
I would have to, yes, sir.
And would this necessarily be in that? I mean, would they identify this as a problem?
I asked a specific question. I talked on the phone. The compliance officer gave me that may create an issue, but to me, May's 50-50. I can't tell you.
Means he doesn't know, he'd have to have somebody else.
Right. Basically, this document is their bosses saying that it's not an issue. That's why we bring it to light. This is the FAA who doles out the money to TxDOT. So that would be the need at that point would be to educate that TxDOT official of the situation and of the existence of this memorandum that speaks into it. So there's so many different memorandums for individual things. To have this in the back of their mind as a possibility, I think is probably next to nothing.
It may be a problem if we submit it without that language.
Right.
Well, then we should submit it with that language, give them both another thing, the same thing. 2 documents with the sentence and without the sentence and make them choose. If that's what our problem is. If we submit one without it.
So one more question.
Yes, sir.
If we had a written TTF agreement with a tenant, what's the encumbrance on their part other than the written agreement?
The encumbrance on the part of
the tenant.
Other than
the written agreement.
I don't detect an encumbrance that there would be on a tenant other than monetary.
You were saying
right?
this was put into place so that
It'd just be an additional monetary barrier to general aviation and something else to possibly complicate their situation.
And that's how much?
It would be determined by the city. It would need to be.
No, what was it? The $50 a month?
Potentially, it was something to represent equal usage of other people who make similar use of the airport. So at that point, from previous conversations Mr. Ray and I have had, it would be something that would match an annual tie-down fee because they'd be in a similar situation as somebody in a tie-down, even though they're renting a shelter for their airplane.
Rental's $50 a month, according to this.
Yeah. And that would be another thing that after we're in this new agreement, away from what we currently have, the city is going to be able to dictate that tie-down fee as needed to.
Mayor, what we have though, we would have to create that separate TTF for the tenant of Mr. Peck. They would sign that agreement and it would be based on the same thing he's saying, a portion of that number. So let's say this number is 340 for Mr. Peck's property. Then potentially his tenant aircraft number could be similar to that number, could be 340 for the year. based on the same use of the airport. And similar to a TTF.
And there are not many people who have aircraft stored in other hangars that are non-owned aircraft. Their best count of mine, probably somewhere greater than 5 and less than 20. I don't really know what that number is. A lot of the doors stay closed. Unfortunately, a lot of aircraft are sitting there unused.
So if we use the low end of 5, then the opportunity cost, using the same number used here, would be roughly $1,600. If we use the high end of 20 aircraft, then for that, then we're looking at $6,000. So for the year, there's your opportunity cost from $1,500 to $6,000.
Let me ask a question. Well, I'm understanding that the POA does not want to have responsibility for making that commercial tenant be responsible for them following the rules and regulations in compliance with the city. But if you're going to inform them, if the POA members are going to agree to inform the tenants, then why wouldn't they at the same time inform the city that there is a tenant that they got to work out a plan with, so that the city is aware that that person is there and just goes work out the plan?
Mayor, that's the difference. The POA's not agreeing that the tenant needs to have a TTF. So they're not informing the city. They're saying, we don't agree that our tenant needs that.
Yeah, they're wanting to cut it off right there at property so it scratches all of that through the fence agreement, so.
Just a question. Okay. Is $340 really going to make your tenants jump up and leave and go to another airport?
Absolutely not. The situation has very little to do with the monetary aspects of it, more to do with the principle behind it. And that's the unfortunate part. It's that the FAA already spoke into it and said that this is unnecessary. That's the only reason there was pushback. That being said, I will say that the document that's in front of you with no edits made to it at all, if this one portion is a sticking point that's going to hold us up from being able to move forward with this, it's our priority to move this forward as much as it is everybody on the council right now. If that needs to be in there, the way it is written in the copy that Mr. Ray has put in front of you, we've spoken as a board, we're willing to move forward with it. Our only point is that it was unnecessary and that the federal government already spoke into saying that it was unnecessary, so it would be our wish that it could be removed. But if you choose to have it there, even though the federal government doesn't say you have to, more power to you, and we're going to be okay with that. That's the idea.
James, my one thing on this, one of the things we've been discussing since the very beginning is an accurate count of the number of planes that are up there on the airport.
Right.
And it's just like you said, there may be 5, there may be 20.
There's a potential danger that you should be made aware of with that. Counting the number of planes on the airport, aircraft that are in a through the fence agreement are actually not allowed to be counted and reported to the state for purposes of federal grant assurances. Those aircraft are considered to be not based at that airfield. So it's a separate risk. That has come up in previous discussions. Mr. Ray is aware of that one as well. It's very complicated. Our relationship with TxDOT, because of the type of unique airport that we have, is a very unique one. And the way that it has worked in the past is because the Airport Property Owners Association and the city have worked hand in hand with TxDOT, because TxDOT understood that if they weren't counting the aircraft that are in any type of agreement with the city, that the city really only has the aircraft that are on a tie down at that point, not any of the aircraft that are stored or maintained on private property. It's a complex matter. I've got a lot of documentation to back it up. We agree wholeheartedly that an accurate count is important. We agree to work with the city to try to make sure that the number that's reported to TxDOT or that TxDOT requests is accurate. And we've worked through that, I believe, as recently as last spring. I wasn't involved in that project.
Mayor, that was last year. And what happens is the POA gave us a report back to Roy. Roy was able to use that and turn that in.
It was a total aggregate number of account rather than an individual accounting of those items. But it's important that you know that any aircraft that are in an agreement, technically it's a federal grant assurance violation to count those aircraft. But it's also another important thing to know that the FAA has had to address spots where airports, because of things that existed before they made the changes in 2012 that brought us all together to change this, that certain agreements would have been entered into that would need to be made exceptions to what their ruling for how they form new airports and do new rules would be. And this is one of those things where TxDOT's had to go around a grant assurance for the purpose of benefiting the city of Lago Vista, who owns the airport. They've had to actually look at one of those grant assurances and say, you know what? We see what we meant to do here. We're going to have to look a different direction because the airport's unique enough that the scenario doesn't match what we see in other places. So maybe we do allow them to count those aircraft in private spots. So that's why we give that total aggregate count if we're requested.
So the paragraph you're reading to me,
Yes, sir.
what, tell me the name of that again?
The documents.
Chapter or whatever it is.
Right. The document is from the Federal Aviation Administration. It was dated July 13th, 2013. It is Compliance Guidance Letter 2013-01, FAA Review of Existing and Proposed Through the Fence Agreements.
So I'm under the inclination that the FAA has addressed this to the point that they've got a whole article written on this that says it's not necessary. At this point, I have no problem approving their version without that paragraph being in there. And, if it comes back from TxDOT or FAA.
Then we're already prepared.
It's not right, then I don't understand because the FAA's already 6 years ago addressed this issue. I understand it's an opportunity possibly lost for us in the future, but, so that's up to y'all on how y'all feel individually. But personally, I don't have a problem with, going with their version on that paragraph.
I have no problem with not doing the agreement as long as we have some kind of mechanism in place so that we know how many tenants are up there, so that we can get an accurate count on our planes and so we can get full funding when we do these agreements. It's to your advantage, it's to our advantage
Certainly.
to have those right numbers.
And that's something that Mr. Ray may be able to speak into more thoroughly than I can. Like I said, I wasn't involved in that project, but I know that anytime the city needs a count of aircraft, that we as a POA have agreed in prior times to provide the city with whatever information they need to go to TxDOT. I mean, it's in everybody's best interest for all the funding to continue the way it always has.
Mayor, the count's not an issue as of last year. Like I said, Roy didn't have an issue getting that information and get it back. Whichever way you vote, we need to look at the full option of full disclosure there. As Mr. Peck read to you, that is for existing and planned through the fence agreements.
Right.
You can argue it one way or the other, but you said as recently as 6 years ago, when it was brought up through the FAA person, that's the person that came back and wanted us to add all these other items to our agreement. Right. So, grand scheme of things, I've always been in the same boat. I want us to get this done, and I think that we've moved that barometer both ways, which is great. I just want to make sure you at least acknowledge that fact, and then however you vote it. Just all that information out there when we've looked at it for a year.
You said you're fine with this agreement, correct?
With the exception of that one part that we would wish could be away from it because the FAA spoke into it. Now, to address what Mr. Ray has said about that not being a through the fence agreement, that's correct. The agreement between the Property Owners Association and the city is not a through the fence agreement. It's important to remember that it is considered to be treated like one as closely as possible for the purpose of funding. Basically, the TxDOT Aviation, when they go to fund airports like ours, has a folder. And we are in that folder, even though we are not a pay for access, like we're renting our access to the airport from the city. Our instrument of access is a deed, but we're still agreeing to fund the city to help the city maintain financial solvency at the airport because TxDOT, one of the most important things is not watching an airport run in the red. So that's why we're doing this. But we act like one. So all the rules that they've tried to come up with or guidelines they've come up with to handle through the fence agreements are applicable, but not all points are always going to be applicable. It's a very custom airport.
Yeah, but we know that there's certain differences between this airport and a true
Right.
defense agreement.
So
But if this is a working document that we can agree on and move forward, if it becomes a problem, we can still work it out on down the road. But we need to come up with an agreement. And I'm comfortable with, I don't want to have to go back and see another change to this document. I got this document in front of me,
We don't want to see another change either.
you know?
Not
The
at
way
all.
that goes.
So,
So that's why it would be our preference that you would approve it as it is in front of you,
Yeah.
minus the rest of that paragraph that's not necessary. And if TxDOT Aviation pushes back in the face of what the FAA has said isn't necessary, we would be happy to edit that one part going forward. That would be our preference.
how about if we did it the other way? Here's the
It
agreement
sounds
that we
like
have,
it-
and the only question that the POA has is this one paragraph. Please give us a ruling on this, otherwise we'll go with whatever you say on that one paragraph.
I would say that as long as it is presented that way to TxDOT,
Yeah, I mean, we're not-
then
we're not out to-
that is fully agreeable. That
Yeah.
works both directions.
Because,
That would
you
be
know,
fine.
it works either way, and that way,
I am, no offense to anyone in government, I might find myself in your seat someday.
yeah.
But I try to not give additional permissions as a person who's a fan of liberty and protecting it. I try to not give additional permissions when I don't have to in life to any entity that may control me. And trying to go beyond the necessary
But I'm the
may
same way
do
on the
that.
other side, so, you know.
Right.
I mean, so
I
mean, I work
And
with you.
we could, I'm sure we could have a fun conversation about that not everybody else in here needs to go through.
And either way, I would prefer, when we submit the document, Mayor, I'd prefer not to draw any attention to any area, but if
That's what's been important historically between the
But
city
if
and
there's-
the
If
POA.
that's something that, either way you do it, if council wants us to do that, it's one area. I mean, we got through the rest of the document, so, I mean, but I'd like to just send it to them,
Right.
scanned, say, here you go, signed with 2 signatures, giddy up, we're ready to move forward.
Right,
for
do
the
you,
next-
do you have a problem? Here's the whole thing.
I'm not even asking that, just,
Well-
thank you, here you
I have a
go.
question, and I don't
Yes, sir.
know why this didn't pop into my head. Does it have to say individual through the fence agreement? Can it say individual funding agreement?
That would actually be more appropriate in this case because by the FAA definition of a through the fence agreement, that is an agreement from an owner of real property adjacent to the airport to the entity that operates the airport. And tenants of ours are not owners of real property at the airport. So that's actually a very good point.
Would that be more?
So are you
agreeable?
fine with that? Funding agreement? Instead of through the
If,
fence?
if it has to be there, it should be there that way. It should be there saying funding agreement, not TTF for sure, because of the definition of what TTF is. So if it has to be there, yes, change it because that would be smart. But you could also just fix that by not having it be there.
Mayor, from the staff side, we're going to be good with whatever you tell us to do, Mayor. We're going to be great if we walk out of here with an agreement tonight. Like I said, I told him if he'd skip out hand in hand, I'd do it. So we just want to make sure that through the year that you've discussed this many times, you've heard everything imaginable to make a very good educated decision.
So here's what I see. We've got 3 options. As this says, you've got his version, and maybe this one with the change wording to a funding agreement. And if we're ready, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I've been making all of them, so I'll go again.
Amen.
I would make a motion that we approve the funding commitment agreement with Rusty Allen Airport with the modification that this be written as an individual funding agreement with the city
On that one paragraph.
on that one paragraph, as opposed to the through the fence.
So in that paragraph,
Change.
change,
Agree to inform tenants of the.
wherever it says,
Individual
wherever it
funding
says through
agreements
the fence,
with the city.
change both references to through the fence to funding. Correct?
All right.
So there's our motion. Do I have a second? I have no second, motion fails. This time I will entertain another motion. All right, hearing none.
I make a motion that we just approve this document just like it is, and we'll move on down the road and we'll figure it out. As we move forward, we're gonna continue to have the relationship with you. Hopefully, we'll have a better working relationship with you than you've had in the past, and we can make changes if need be on down the road. At least we have something that we can submit.
All right, I have a motion to approve the funding agreement as written.
So that's gonna be these two documents, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Do I have a second?
I will second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right,
Okay, hold on.
so we got one from Frank.
Aye.
Two, so Tim,
Okay, 3.
Dave, and Dick. So there's 4. All those opposed, nay?
Nay.
Nay. Motion carries 4-2. Thank you.
Thank you very much for all your time.
Thanks, sir.
We'll work with you.
And to record one
Oh,
conflict
and
of
one
interest.
recusal.
Recusal.
Mayor, as soon as you sign this document, we'll hand a copy over to Mr. Peck, and he can take it, and
So why does
they'll bring it back.
funding agreement have to pop up now?
Consent agenda. All matters listed under consent agenda are to be considered routine by the city council and will be enacted by one motion. There will not be separate discussion on these items. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. We're looking at number 12, approval of the January 17th, 2019 council minutes. And I would like to point something out to y'all. Let me bring this up. Item number 12. Okay, so this was brought to me offline by a citizen. This was our first meeting where we had our executive sessions prior to the council, starting at 5, prior to the general open session. So when our agendas are written, you know, it notes executive session at 5 o'clock, and then at the end, it allows for executive session again. The question was, why was this in our minutes at the end, items number 12 and 13? If we didn't take action, why was there no action reported? Or if we didn't go to, or if we did take action, where was the action? Just so y'all know, reading this, because it is listed on the agenda at the, you know, at the beginning of the meeting, it has to be referenced in our meeting, in our minutes. But if you'll see, it'll say at the end, it'll say executive session, council did not convene into executive session.
Okay.
So, just so y'all know, just kind of an educational thing, because I had to educate myself on this. Yes, it's referenced, but it's not addressed because it says did not convene.
Okay.
So,
Gotcha. So that will pretty much show up in, if we don't go back into executive session, it will automatically
right,
reflect. Okay.
right, because, you know, we've had this once already now, so in the future, if somebody comes up and says, hey, it shows you went into executive session on your
Right.
minutes, but
Right.
I don't see anything,
Right.
no timestamps, no nothing. That is the reason. It should say at the top, council did not convene.
Okay.
And if I don't have any questions, discussion, I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes as shown.
All right, I have a motion
I'll second.
and I have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Hearing none, consent agenda is approved, unanimous. And we're moving into city manager reports.
Mayor, I have two items to report. The first item is we are going to continue to work with some of our legislators to try and find support for our Cap Metro bill. It's just something that the mayor and I are going to continue doing some work on. And the second item to report is the school system has responded back to us on a request for property to consider purchase of their property. They're going to keep their property as part of their facilities study and long-term plan. And so we have begun discussion with two other property owners. We hope to bring that back to you at the next council meeting to present some ideas to council in executive to see if that's of interest.
All right.
That's all I have, Mayor.
Was that about the green center space?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right, so now we move into future meetings. Number 14, consider our schedule and items for future council meetings. So we've got, right now on the list, we have council liaison reports, landscaping ordinance, and planning and zoning update to council.
There will probably be some economic development updates on how the committee's running with the guidance of Eric Z.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and I agree with the comments made earlier. I think it is time, if not past due, that we got a capital improvement project update. Our little color bars and our dates and see where we're at, our stars, and see
Gotcha.
where that's coming along.
Okay, good enough.
What else?
Mayor, I have one item to discuss. At least I'd like to introduce the idea of inviting Chief Donnie Norman to come and speak to us about Firewise. That's been done some time back, but I think it's probably a good time to bring it back, since we have a lot of new residents that may not be aware of the dangers of fires beginning with tall grasses and our cedars being something that could be a real potential hazard for us.
Are you gonna reach out to him for potential dates, or do we need, does staff need to do that, or?
I can check with him if that's okay, Mayor.
Sure, that'd be fine.
I had suggested earlier, Arch and I were talking, I thought May would be a good time frame, because that's right about the time the heat starts building, the grass has had a good month to grow, outdoor activities increasing, people are barbecuing I'm thinking May would be a really good time frame for that.
I'll check.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I'm curious if we need to put it on the agenda. I think after, I guess on Monday, we're going to find out about the sale of some of our surplus properties, and if that's a success or a failure, maybe we can start identifying some of the LVPOA properties we own and other properties that we would like to present to the council and decide what to keep and what to get rid of in case this went really well.
Okay, yeah, so additional surplus properties?
Yeah, we've got a lot of them, so it might take a little while to go through all of them, but I would suggest we start with the POA-owned properties so we could get out of any obligation to pay fees to them.
All right. Let's see, what's the mid-year point? March? Let's see, November, October, November, December, January, February? March. So April timeframe, update from our golf course manager. I don't think we've had one of those in a while, have we?
No.
Any other departments we need updates from?
I'll try to get you one from planning and zoning.
That's a
On
committee.
where
That's a
they are.
committee.
Oh, good.
Yes, So, March, I need to identify my youth advisories that are dropping off. April, we will need to advertise that. And May, select my new committee members before they get out of school. They have been tasked already to recruit some members, so. And schedule, there is a potential, I will be absent March 7th, next meeting. Do not know for sure yet,
March 7th, you'll be absent.
possibly, I
We'll
don't
be
know.
leaderless? Okay.
What?
We will be leaderless?
Oh, no.
No. There he is. No.
The chaos.
Chaos. Watch out.
It's a potential.
Okay.
Mayor, Parks and Recs has also lost a member, so I think we're gonna need to appoint another one for that committee, which I'm the liaison for.
All right, so you'll need to get with all the people that express interest and, or, we can advertise it again if we need to.
Who'd you lose now?
Mike Panter.
Mike, okay.
Yeah, get with staff on how to, you know.
We'll pull that
get with-
list.
Pull the list of current
Volunteers.
applicants and then see if we need to advertise it again. Because the applications are good for a year, so should be able to appoint somebody from those applications.
We'll be having to appoint someone new to the Golf Course Advisory Committee as well. Eric Hutchison is resigning. He's going to be moving back to Austin.
Okay. What else?
That's it.
That's it.
Not a must.
All right. We are to executive session. Does anybody have a reason why we need to go into executive session?
No.
Did y'all hear down there?
Pardon? Sorry.
We're at the point of executive session. Do y'all have a reason why we need to convene into executive session?
Negative.
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 All right. We'll go with straight up 10 o'clock. I call 10 o'clock, meeting adjourned.
Is there any way to have a sign park in town?
I don't know.
Go right down.
I don't want him to walk out without it. I'm giving him a copy and Donna.
I like the idea of it.
And I'm gonna